and they sarcastically added that Jin could probably only swing the special sword, barisada. Faced with his two brothers' taunts, Jin could only suppress his feelings. As he truly was a failure of the clanjin, continued to practice his swordsmanship, ignoring his two brothers who were constantly speaking ill of him nearby. Seeing that Jin remained silent and refused to respond to their words, one of them came over and kicked him in the stomach, causing him to fall in pain in the middle of the courtyard. Afterward, the two continued to curse Jin even though he had done nothing wrong. Seeing this, Jin intended to turn and pick up his fallen wooden sword, but just as he was about to pick it up, his other brother's foot stepped on his hand. While stepping on him, he told Jin not to be stubborn, because no matter how many times he practiced, it would still be useless. Ignoring those words, Jin stubbornly tried to retrieve his sword. Just then, the other brother found a book on him. It was basic swordsmanship theory. He laughed even harder, not believing that someone from the Runkandel family would need such nonsense. The other brother added a few more comments, saying that's why weaklings like Jin shouldn't be given a chance. At the same time, he used his strength to break the wooden sword, despite Jin's pleading eyes. After their fun, the two brothers were about to leave, when Jin boldly told them they couldn't do that. And so, they had another excuse to beat him up, not forgetting to mock, "Is that all your nanny Gilly taught you?" Hearing this, Jin was furious because his nanny was the only person who treated him well in this house. But in the end, he could only take the beating from his two brothers, as the power gap was too vast. These days of being bullied by his brothers, or the gossip about a non-existent talent, were all futile things, because Jin knew that as long as he tried, he could do it. If he tried, one day he would surely be acknowledged by the clan and become a part of Rumkandel. But life wasn't as beautiful as Jin thought. The day came when a failure like him was forced to leave the clan, leaving behind efforts that were never recognized. That was exactly how someone like Jin Runkandel was expelled from the clan at the age of 25 and began to wander aimlessly. Until one day he met that person, the one he called Master, that Jin realized he truly had talent. Not only that, but he also had the ability to master magic, something forbidden in the Runkandel clan. 3 years after the day Jin was cast out of the clan, in a small room, Jin was learning how to connect natural mana with a mage's mana to recover and continuously enhance his metabolism. And then, one time, Jin was drawn into shadows, and a voice emerged from deep within them. He introduced himself as Soldere, the Lord of Shadows, and Soldere said he wanted to make a contract with him as the God of Shadows. Once Jin agreed, he would be able to use the power of shadow. Not only that, but he would also gain the ability to remove any curse. Saying that, Solderet looked at Jin pitifully and said, "Perhaps you've been hated by someone since you were a child, haven't you? Because your talent was erased by a lowly curse. That curse is called Blade Illusion, a thing that devours all talent related to swordsmanship. Such a terrible curse could not exist in the Runkandel family, and perhaps it was this very curse that attracted the God of Shadows to Jin." As he spoke, Solderet broke the seal on Jin, so from now on, no curse could harm him again. Then Solderet left, wanting Jin to become a supreme swordsman because he would always be watching over him everywhere. As soon as the curse was lifted, Jin felt his body overflowing with energy and took his sword outside to swing it a few times. Indeed, Jin could feel his own improvement with every swing of the sword. Now the most pathetic fool of the Runkandel clan would be no more. In his place would be a Jin Runkandel, who would become a master swordsman in the future. Not only that, by combining magic with his sword, all existence would be erased. At the same time, in a nearby forest, a group of people was observing Jin and realized he had obtained superior power. And so, that night, Jin Runkandel was assassinated while he was asleep. Jin didn't understand why his end had come to this. He hadn't even had a single chance to try using the power Solderet had granted him. If his end was here, then why was he given a chance? Jin Runkandel's eyes slowly closed with a myriad of why questions. And then suddenly Jin opened his eyes, and before him were the members of his clan. This was the place of the sword selection ceremony for the children of the Runkandel family. His nanny, Jilly, smiled nearby and looked at Jin, making him even more confused about what was happening. Then, finally, Jin looked towards a special sword. It was Barasada, the patriarch's sword. It was then that Jin realized his chance was to return to this moment, where he would complete a brand new life. By returning to the past and becoming the 1-year-old Jin Runkandel, the youngest young master, Jin Runkandel, once again stepped forward and chose the patriarch's sword for himself. He promised that this time he would definitely decide his own life on his own terms. When Jin's hand touched Barasada, all surprised eyes were on him. Only one person was pleased with this result, and that was the patriarch, the greatest swordsman of the clan, and also Jin's father. He then ordered someone to take Jin to the Storm Castle, where Jin would live until he was 10 years old. 6 years later, at the Storm Castle, on a rainy and windy day, Jin was still searching for books on swordsmanship, thinking to himself, "To think I still have to live here for another 3 years, it's boring to death." Just then he heard a scream from a maid in his room, which was next door. She had discovered a dead bird in the young master's room, and Jin knew the only ones who could do this in the Storm Castle were his brothers. At the same time, his 2 brothers revealed themselves, looking disappointed that they couldn't see a fearful expression on Jin's face. Daytona Runkandel, 9 years old, the 11th young master of the Runkandel clan, and Haytona Runkandel, 9 years old, the 12th young master of the Runkandel clan. The 2 looked at Jin and laughed, asking if he liked the gift his 2 brothers had painstakingly prepared. But Jin remained silent and held the small bird, remembering that in his previous life, these 2 brothers became notorious murderers when they became vanguards. But now, at only 9 years old, to be able to do this just to provoke him was truly disgusting. Seeing that Jin still wouldn't speak to them, the 2 brothers assumed he had chosen the path of the patriarch and was looking down on them. Haytona stepped forward to teach Jin a lesson, but Jin easily blocked the blow with the power of shadow. Before his brothers' surprised and slightly frightened eyes, Jin calmly told them both to shut up and landed a punch on Haytona, making him angry and want to retaliate. But the more he retaliated, the more pathetic he became, continuously taking hits from Jin. Having successfully demonstrated his power, Jin told his 2 brothers that from now on, it would be best for them not to appear before him again. At that moment, someone from outside entered, wondering what was happening. Jin quickly retracted his power and said that the other 2 had started fighting each other and then fainted. Hearing this, Khan could only mumble in agreement and take the 2 young masters to see a doctor. But he was immediately stopped by Jin, who requested that his 2 brothers be taken somewhere else, and then Jin turned to lead the way for Khan. Outside, the rain was getting heavier, as Jin buried the unfortunate bird from earlier. Next to him were his 2 fainted brothers who had not yet woken up. Seeing this, Khan asked, "Young Master Jin, are you really going to leave them here while the storm is getting stronger?" Jin said that his brothers needed to understand the seriousness of what they had done. Seeing this, Khan could only respect Jin's decision and follow his lead. On the way back, Khan realized that the energy emanating from Jin was definitely not aura. If it's not aura, could it be mana? But isn't that forbidden in the clan? If that's true, then this incident isn't a normal sibling squabble and must be reported to the patriarch immediately. Then Khan turned to a nearby servant and told him to bring a horse over quickly. Meanwhile, Jin was up above, looking down, and just as he expected, the man was going back to report this to his father. He knew that Khan was not just the 3 brothers' knight, but also their supervisor. In Khan's eyes, his power resembled magic, so he wouldn't delay and would return immediately. This spiritual power was proof that Jin and Saldaret had a contract, and that contract was still valid in this life. Furthermore, thanks to that contract, the blade illusion curse was no longer effective, and the foolish son of the Runkandel family would be no more. The only thing Jin needed to do now was to meet his father. At the same time, in a forest, Khan was reporting to the patriarch about young Master Jin's recent fight with the Tona brothers. Hearing this, the patriarch told Khan to gather the knights. He would bring people with him to meet his youngest son. After a while, the 7 vanguards of the Runkandel family and 200 knights under their command were assembled. The vanguards are the strongest of the lineage. They are the bravest and the first to charge onto the battlefield during the Runkandel family's conquests, and under each of them were many soldiers and knights. Then the patriarch took the 7 vanguards and headed straight for the storm castle. On the way there, Mary, the 7th candidate of the Runkendell family, was asking Dyfus if he knew what this urgent summons was for. She had tried asking Luna earlier, but it seemed she didn't know. Hearing this, Dyfus simply said that the Tona pair would be leaving the storm castle next year, so perhaps their father was going there for that reason. Besides, it might also be because of our youngest brother, Dyfus, the 4th candidate, added. Hearing about the youngest, Mary was visibly surprised. She recalled that during the sword selection 6 years ago, this youngest was the one who chose the patriarch's sword. But all of this was just their speculation. Could their father really be rushing back just for this? Seeing the two chatting away, Luna, who was ahead, signaled for them to quiet down and focus on the matter at hand. Luna was the first candidate of the Runkendell family. Inside the storm castle, the nanny Gilly was getting Jin ready after hearing that the patriarch was coming to meet his youngest son. He guessed that Khan must have reported to his father, which was why he arrived so quickly. Besides, Khan was also quite naive, so he probably didn't report about him using magic. He likely just reported what he saw. 4:16. Jin guessed that this time his father must have come to check if that strange power of his could truly become something useful for the Runkendell clan in the future. Just then, the patriarch's entourage arrived. Upon entering the hall, the patriarch immediately summoned the Tona twins. He then asked Daytona and Haytona why they fought with Jin, and told them to confess their wrongdoing, which greatly surprised them both. Then, the two colluded to deceitfully tell their father that they were not at fault, and it was all the youngest's doing that got them injured. They even added details about the strange power they witnessed from Jean, saying it wasn't aura and looked more like magic. And they finished with a smug smile because, in the Runkendell clan, magic was forbidden. Mary and Dyfus, standing there and hearing this, also shook their heads in agreement, saying that Jin should be investigated quickly, because if they delayed, the youngest would find a way to hide it. But the patriarch retorted, turning to the Tona brothers and telling them they both needed to change. If you continue with this habit, you two won't be able to survive in this Runkendell clan. After that, he had someone summon Jin. As soon as Jin saw the face of Patriarch Chiron Runkendell, he remembered that he was the strongest, as well as the most heartless and cruelest person he had ever known. The one known as the Genesis Knight, the pinnacle of demigods. Before obtaining those titles, he was still a person with normal emotions. But afterward, he gradually lost his worldly feelings and became as he is now. He became a person who only knew of glory and the future of the clan. Therefore, to him, people who knew nothing about the sword, like the Jin from the previous life, were just failures. But this time was different. In this life, no one could look down on him anymore. With that thought, Jin opened the main hall doors and slowly walked in, under the scrutinizing gazes of his older siblings as they looked at the youngest brother who would be the future patriarch. And then, Jin faced the clan head and formally greeted him. His father, hearing this, was surprised why Jin called him clan head instead of father. He looked up and replied, "Because besides the two of us, there are many older siblings and guards here. There are also over 100 clan members present, symbolizing that this time, father, you have come on official business, so addressing you as clan head is more appropriate." Hearing this, Chiron praised his youngest son, but also said that this time it wasn't official business but something else, so he should just call him father. Then he asked Jin a question similar to the one he asked the Tona brothers. "Where do you think you went wrong?" Jin clenched his fists and firmly said that he only wanted revenge. As a member of the Runkendell family, debts of gratitude are repaid, and debts of vengeance must be settled. Mary, standing in the crowd, heard this and whispered in admiration with a smirk. Hearing this, Patriarch Chiron told everyone to leave, so he could speak privately with his youngest son. The soldiers and clan members below were wondering, could it be that the young master has passed the patriarch's test? Seeing everyone still whispering, a candidate stepped forward and told everyone to leave as the patriarch commanded. After that, everyone stepped outside. His older sister Mary, seeing her youngest brother being confronted by their father, also felt that this kid was not bad at all. When everyone had left, the patriarch turned to ask his son, "Is it true that you have an unusual power?" As the Tona twins said. The Runkendell clan forbids the use of magic, because if one dabbles in magic, One can no longer reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Therefore, he wanted to know what power Jin had used. If Jin truly dared to touch magic, he would certainly not let it slide. Then Jin, while speaking to his father, demonstrated Solderet's power and asked him to examine it, because even he didn't really know what Solderet's shadow power was. After seeing the power his son demonstrated, Chiron was extremely surprised because this was the power of the founder of the Rune Candle clan. He was sure he wasn't mistaken because that meant this child was destined to become the next head of the clan. That shadow power was the energy of the sword Barasata. Under Jin's persistent questioning, he confirmed that it was indeed the power of Solderet, the god of shadows, who had made a contract with the founder of the Runkendel clan and had been on their side ever since. But ever since Lord Tamar passed away, Solderet had never appeared in the Runkendel clan again. But now, perhaps, he had connected with Runkendel through his son. Jin further asked if that god of shadows was stronger than his father. In truth, Patriarch Chiron didn't know for sure, as he had never fought a god. Hearing this answer, Jin thought to himself, "My old man is quite arrogant." Just then, his father patted his head and asked Jin a question in return. With that, and of course not to disappoint the old man, Jin answered clearly that he wanted to use this shadow power to serve the clan. Hearing this, Patriarch Chiron laughed heartily and said it was the most ridiculous lie he had ever heard. "You clearly beat your brothers to a pulp and threw them into a storm, and you dare say it's for the clan?" He then demanded that Jin tell him his true feelings. So, after a moment of internal struggle, Jin finally said he wanted to use this power for himself. But unexpectedly, the old man quite liked this honest answer. He then left, adding a warning that from this day on, he would be watching him very closely, so he should watch his step. Only after his father left did Jin breathe a sigh of relief, knowing he had finally gotten through this safely. Besides, as mentioned, from now on he could use shadow power as he pleased. This was an unexpected success. This life and the previous one were truly worlds apart. Before leaving with her father, Mary turned back and gave Jin a gift. After handing it over, Mari didn't forget to tell Jin to get strong quickly, then turned towards Luna, smiled, and continued on her way out. Jin was still wondering, why me? Until he opened the gift box and found a phoenix heart inside. It was then he thought to himself, Sister Mari is truly crazy for giving this to a 7-year-old kid. To be fair, regarding Mari Runkendel, she was a 6-star knight and the 7th knight of the Runkendel family, also known as Wind Fury. But there was another name few knew, the Mad Woman of the Southern Domain, which was the reason Jin received this gift. And what Mari wanted was for Jin to get strong quickly and become her rival. If one eats a phoenix heart, besides gaining fire resistance, it's also considered the necessary catalyst for a 6-star mage to summon a phoenix. While he was thinking about the phoenix's power, Gilly brought in the cooked heart. But of course, his brothers, who were hiding behind, had to reveal themselves first. The Tona brothers, hearing Jin was gifted a phoenix heart, were drooling and came to peek. They thought it was too much for their youngest brother to eat alone and hoped they would get a share. And Jin wasn't a selfish person, so he could share with them. But first, they needed to do one thing. And so, a moment later, we only see the Tona brothers digging a tunnel beneath the storm castle. Perhaps this was exactly what Jin wanted, the place where Solderet was sealed. After digging for a while, the Tona brothers finished their work and returned, looking disheveled and exhausted. Exhausted as they were, hearing that the phoenix soup was ready on the table, they brightened up again. But when they got to the table, there were no bowls of soup, only 2 spoons. How pathetic. Jin just turned and innocently said he only promised to share, not how much. His 2 older brothers had no choice but to take what they were given. A moment later, Jin was heading towards the tunnel from before. After assessing it, he saw that the wall wasn't too thick, so he could use magic to break through it. Then, Jin used his magic power to break into the cellar, because his mana had been continuously increasing with no outlet, making this the perfect opportunity. And then, with a loud bang, the obstructing wall was shattered, revealing before Jin's eyes the secret chamber of the Runkandel clan. Next, Jin continuously chanted ancient words, the key to opening the chamber's gate, and the gate slowly opened after the incantation. The secret chamber of Runkandel was used to store the secret records of the families they had defeated over the past 1,000 years, and only the vanguards of the Runkandel clan were allowed to enter. Jin remembered that in his previous life, an older brother had told him about this room and said he would never need to know about it because he could never become a vanguard. But thanks to that, Jin now knew the key to enter. Then, Jin continued deeper and discovered something strange. Before him was a person who was sealed, and on his face were black spots that looked like scales. Jin was wondering if this was a person when he suddenly remembered the incantation to enter the room. It was a line. The child of Runkandel has come to control Murakhan. And if his speculation was correct, the one sleeping soundly here was the Black Dragon. Murakhan legend has it that the Black Dragon Murakhan was defeated by the first vanguard of the Runkandel clan and fell into a deep sleep. He had thought it was just a legend, but now Jin was seeing him with his own eyes. After that, Jin put aside thoughts of Murakhan and continued to search for the secret records. And while he was searching, Murakhan seemed to begin waking up. A moment later, Jin found the room that stored the secret records of all the clans. Jin wanted to check the Kunkan clan since they were also a family of swordsmen, and then the clans related to magic and other things. Jin even wanted to steal these books to study them, but that would be easily discovered, so he planned to copy them each time he came here. Then Jin went to the secret library to read the books. Suddenly, a strange sound came from outside the door. Jin was wondering who could possibly enter the secret library in the middle of the night like this when the buck won. Who entered from the door was the Black Dragon Murakhan. Facing Murakhan made Jin extremely surprised, because in his previous life, he had never heard of the Black Dragon's awakening. Then Jin calmed down and thought, isn't Murakhan the guardian dragon of the Runkandel family? If so, I just need to be respectful and act like a child. So, Jin politely greeted the clan's guardian, but the response was Murakhan's angry laughter that Jin dared to call him a guardian god. After that, Jin received a tirade of curses from Murakhan. After venting his anger, Murakhan also lamented that he had clearly smelled a fragrant scent earlier, but it turned out to be just a child. Approaching Jin, Murakhan detected the scent of shadow energy emanating from him. Even though the Black Dragon had slept for 1,000 years, he still remembered this scent very well. Only those with a pact like Tamar would have this scent. Realizing that the Black Dragon was likely awakened by the shadow energy on him, Jin came up with a bold plan. He demonstrated Soldaret's shadow power in front of Murakhan and asked him to analyze it. But as soon as he saw this power, Murakhan froze for 5 seconds. He couldn't believe that the 1,000-year pact was with a child like this. In fact, Murakhan had once made a promise to the shadow god Soldaret, and it seemed now he needed to cooperate with Jin to keep that promise. Murakhan said that Jin was too young to hear the story of that promise, so Murakhan introduced himself first. I am Murakhan, Soldaret's representative and also his friend, and the last descendant of the first shadow creature. Based on the 1,000-year pact, from now on, I will accompany you, Jin. On Jin's side, he also introduced himself as the 13th son of Chiron, Jin Runkandel, the one who made a pact with the shadow god. And so, from that moment on, the two became companions. Legend has it that on Mount Murakhan, the place of howling winds, a place ruled by and named after the Black Dragon Murakhan, long, long ago. But about 1,000 years ago, Murakhan was defeated in a battle with Tamar. History records that since Tamar's death and the destruction of the Storm Castle, Murakhan fell into hibernation. However, that was not the truth. Those who made pacts with gods would cooperate with a guardian dragon, and Tamar's guardian dragon was Murakhan, as he had made a pact with Soldaret. Now that Murakhan had awakened, it meant Jin would have a guardian dragon of his own. The next morning, Jin went to the secret archives to bring food for Murakhan and planned to stay there for the next few days. Jin kept asking about things he was curious about, but it seemed Murakhan was only focused on the strawberry tarts he brought. Seeing Jin take out a pile of books to take notes, Murakhan was surprised, as it was rare to see a child like him at this age. But Jin retorted, saying he was a member of the Runkandel family, Above him were 12 older siblings, and to surpass them, he needed to work much harder. Then, Jin asked more about Lord Tamar, the founder of Runkandel, wondering how much he would understand about these books. But Murakan said Tamar probably wouldn't understand anything in them because he was a master of practical combat without needing to read theory. Murakan added that Jin should learn slowly, as he was still very young, so one day he could be as good as Tamar, or even better, because the nickname of the god Soldaret is infinite power. Soldaret has no limits, which means his contractor also has no limits to their power. With that, Murakan decided to teach Jin a special technique to encourage him and lift his spirits. It was shadow energy release, a technique that all beings who use shadow must master, because it is both the beginning and the end of shadow energy. Then Murakan requested that Jin first learn and master the control of mana flow. This might take him about 2 or 3 years, Jin thought. 2 or 3 years? If so, that's too late. Besides, he had already learned how to control mana in his previous life, so he showed off this skill to Murakan while he was still rambling on about the basics. Seeing Jin expertly control his mana made Murakan jump in surprise, because this was impossible. Only a genius among geniuses could do it at this age, but little did he know, Jin had lived 2 lives. So after that, Murakan demonstrated the shadow release technique as an example. Shadow energy originates from shadow, and all of it is born from Soldaret. Therefore, all shadow belongs to him, and his sole contractor will also have the power to control all of these things. In short, Jin is also the master of all shadows. Dusk at the front lines. Luna Runkandel was carrying out her usual conquests. Then, a soldier under her command reported that they had cleared this area and only needed to eliminate 5 more neighboring areas to complete the mission. Luna saw that the remaining 5 areas would only take 4 months, so for now, she let everyone rest. And she also asked the soldier what a 9-year-old kid would like, but the author doesn't show us the scene with the answer. Half a year after meeting Murakan, the Tona brothers were now 10 years old and preparing to leave the Storm Castle. Jin Runkandel had also just had his 9th birthday. He was having a birthday party organized by his nanny Gilly and everyone at the Storm Castle. When Khan entered from outside, he apologized for the interruption and reported that Lady Luna had come to visit him. At the same time, Luna also entered from outside. Seeing this, Jin was a bit surprised. Luna Runkandel is the first candidate and also a 9-star knight. She is the eldest daughter of the 13 Runkandel siblings, also known by the nickname White Whale, Luna. Although she is the strongest among the Runkandel siblings, she has no interest in becoming the patriarch and has voluntarily withdrawn from the War of Succession. She is truly a lone white whale. Because of that, Luna had never paid attention to any of her siblings, as the relationship between them was seen as that of strangers rather than blood relatives. However, for her to come to the Storm Castle now without prior notice, there must be something special. Either it's related to the clan, or she knows I've been sneaking into the secret library, Jin thought to himself. So, Jin went to greet his sister Luna. In response to Jin's caution, Luna's friendly gesture greatly surprised him. Seeing Jin looking a bit weary, Luna asked why, and learned that Jin was a little nervous because it was his first time being so close to his eldest sister. Jin's words made Luna realize that the Runkandel tradition was for siblings to always watch and trample on each other. Perhaps Jin thought she was here to test him. Luna moved closer to Jin and hoped he could have the nanny step aside so she could speak with him privately for a moment. Although thinking his sister Luna probably had no ill intentions, with only the 2 of them in the room, Luna spoke directly. She said that his performance the last time she was here had caught the attention of the other children, which meant that when Jin left the Storm Castle, his every move would be watched. But Luna also hoped that Jin would not lose his own happiness by participating in the clan's struggle, because she truly didn't want this youngest brother to be hurt by the traditions of the Runkandel clan. Only now did Jin realize that his sister Luna had given up the position of patriarch for these reasons. But one thing remained. If that was the case, why didn't she warn him in his previous life? Was it because he wasn't worthy of talking to her, Or because he wasn't strong enough to compete with his other siblings? After thinking, Jin replied to Luna that although he cherished her words, he was determined to join the clan's battle because he had already experienced an assassination attempt before. Hearing this made Luna even more surprised. She shattered the cup in her hand and angrily asked Jin who dared to harm her brother in the storm castle. Even if Luna asked further, Jin still couldn't identify that person. Seeing Luna's unease, Jin added that he was currently safe, so she shouldn't worry too much. And thanks to his sister Luna, he knew that not all of his siblings hated him. Seeing her brother being so understanding, Luna gently hugged him, heartbroken that this youngest brother of hers would now have to be entangled in the clan's mess. After that, they both cheered up again because, after all, it was Jin's birthday, so they shouldn't talk too much about this. Luna took out a birthday gift she had specially prepared. From the gift box, Luna took out a blue necklace and put it on Jin herself. As she put it on, Luna told her brother that, whenever he faced difficulties he couldn't solve on his own, he could break the green gem on this pendant, and she would be there no matter where she was. Then it was time for Luna to leave. Jin also gently bid his sister farewell, and then headed back to the secret chamber where Murakan was. As soon as Murakan saw the necklace on Jin's neck, he was curious who had given it to him. This person must cherish Jin very much to gift him such a thing. Jin asked back what it was, and Murakan revealed that it was a relic of the demon king Orgel. Over 1,000 years ago, countless people risked their lives just to obtain one of his relics, and of course, with such rarity came wondrous things. It grants the wearer resistance to magic attacks from 5-star and below, as well as increases the wearer's magic power. In particular, it also has the ability to summon. Seeing Murakan knew so much about it, Jin wanted to know the reason. And of course, it was because Orgel was from the same era as Murakan. Furthermore, Murakan also knew that Jin had just received this item from someone with powerful energy who had just arrived. Jin was surprised because this place was very far from the main hall, and perhaps his sister Luna had also sensed the energy on Murakan. Seeing him flustered, Murakan explained while opening a pastry that his sister, who gave him such a precious gift, would have no reason to report him and leave Jin to die. Jin recalled her words as she left. My dear brother, no matter what you do, no matter what you become, I will always be on your side. The time Jin considered boring at the Storm Castle had actually brought him many things, from his father's recognition, Mary's phoenix heart, and his relationship with his sister Luna, or even his encounter with the black dragon Murakan. These were things he would never have dared to dream of in his previous life. Time flew by, and it was almost time for Jin to turn 10 and go to the main castle. One morning at the Storm Castle as usual, Jin was still practicing martial arts with Khan. Every move Jin made was in no way inferior to the experienced Khan. Just as Khan expected, this was the son the patriarch cared for the most. It was as if young Master Jin was the one evaluating how Khan was teaching him. His eyes exuded strength and authority. After a while, the two finished today's training. As usual, Khan expressed his gratitude that Jin had accepted his teachings. It has been the greatest honor of my life to teach you until now. It wouldn't be long until Jin left the Storm Castle, and until then, Khan promised to do his best to teach him the best things. Seeing Khan like this, Jin smiled and thanked him for his sentiment. After martial arts practice, Jin went to his room to play with fire. After eating the phoenix heart, his body gradually developed a strong amount of mana and was no longer affected by ordinary fire. His nanny, Gilly, seeing him play with fire like that, was surprised. Young master, don't you feel the heat? Indeed, Jin didn't feel the heat. It felt like soaking in warm water. Currently, Jin had absorbed half of the medicinal power and would absorb the rest in the next few years. At the same time, the nanny was also packing for tomorrow, when Jin would leave the castle and head to the main castle. Then she saw some strange books on his bed and asked if she should bring them along. Jin told her to just pack them, and he would read them later. After cleaning up, Gilly went to make strawberry tarts for the young master's snack. Hearing about strawberry tarts, Jin suddenly remembered Murakan and rushed to the secret library. Jin asked Murakan how he would follow him, but Murakan's reply was a hearty laugh. He proudly boasted that although he was weaker now compared to 1,000 years ago, this was a trivial matter. Murakan would take a path that no one would notice. Jin was worried about Murakan's weakened strength, but he assured him that he would gradually recover. Besides, in the future, Jin would also become stronger than him because the Black Dragon was merely his guardian. Therefore, he should hurry up and become a magic swordsman like Tamar. Hearing this, Jin wondered, the Runchandal clan clearly forbids magic, so how could the founder, Tamar, be a magic swordsman? Previously, Jin had heard from Soldaret that the Runkandel clan originated as a family of magic swordsmen, and Tamar Runkandel, the clan's founder, was the strongest magic swordsman in history. But now almost no one knew this truth. Murakan added that the reason the Runkandel clan abandoned magic and pursued swordsmanship was due to an oath established 1,000 years ago. If it were 1,000 years ago, the one who contracted with the Shadow God and the Black Dragon Murakan would be greatly revered. But things were different now. Perhaps the people of Runkandel no longer favored them. So this time, when he goes out, Murakan will definitely hide well. As for someone discovering them if they came to this secret library, Murakan would create an illusion here, although it wouldn't last long because his power had weakened. Hearing Murakan's clever plan, Jin felt somewhat relieved. He then thanked him and gave him a few special gifts. And the thing that made Murakan happiest was none other than strawberry tarts and strawberry wine. And so, that night, the two of them had one last feast at the Storm Castle before moving. The next day, before leaving, the nanny Jilly was giving her final reminders. The main castle will be much busier and harsher than this place, so I hope you'll be careful. And Jin, of course, replied to reassure her. At the same time, two knights, Jerome and Holtz, also arrived. They were the ones who would escort the young master to the main castle, and Jin's new life began from here. On October 30th, 1790, Jin finally left the Storm Castle to head to the main territory of Runkandel, the Garden of Swords. After traveling for a while, the snow began to fall more heavily. The two people inside didn't know if the transfer gate would work in this weather. Just then, the carriage suddenly stopped. Outside, a guard announced there was an ambush ahead, so the two of them should stay in the carriage. Jilly said that Jerome and Holtz were both 7-star guards, so Jin didn't need to worry too much. Not only that, but she was also here. The enemies outside numbered only about 20, and all were 7-star or lower, so there would be no danger. Suddenly, Jin remembered something and asked Gilly to get out of the carriage with him quickly. He clearly remembered that Runkandel guards, under any circumstances, were not allowed to neglect the protection of the Runkandel bloodline. One of those two should have been here protecting them. This meant that one of them had either betrayed them or was an imposter. Jin guessed that there was likely a weapon hidden in this carriage, so they needed to get out quickly. Hearing the danger in the young master's words, Gilly immediately switched to combat mode and protected Jin as a member of Runkandel. And so, she grabbed Jin and flew out of the carriage. The two of them continued forward despite the worsening snowstorm, which hindered them quite a bit. Jin asked Gilly to take him to where the other two were fighting to confirm a few things. What if those ambushers are actually our allies? If they wanted to take us down here, they probably would have done it right after we left the carriage. But this silence is strange. On the battlefield, Reca, the captain of the Black King Squadron, was ordering his entire army to quickly search for young master Jin Runkandel. At the same time, Gilly had brought the young master here. Jin saw both the Mattel Magic Clan and the Black King Squadron, so he knew for sure that the two previous guards were imposters. A member of the Mattel clan spotted the two, so the entire army moved to protect the young master. They had been ordered by the Runkandel family to come here and rescue young master Jin. Meanwhile, the two imposters were struggling to fight back. This further confirmed they were fakes, as there was no way a 7-star guard would struggle against these people. Jilly asked what their purpose was and who their master was, but of course they didn't answer. Seeing that she couldn't get any information, Gilly turned to ask the young master how to deal with them. He told her to just kill one, and for the other, to chop off his hands and bring him over. And so, following Jin's order, Gilly swiftly flew over and took care of one of them. As for the silver-haired one, she chopped off his hands and dragged him back by the head for Jin to interrogate. Perhaps these people had underestimated the Runkandel family, because to become a servant of this lineage, one's level had to be at least 7-star or higher. So, to assassinate a child of the Runkandel family One would need to be at least at the 8-star level. The silver-haired man, seeing Jin rambling, cursed at him, saying, "The Runkandle clan's end is near." But little did he know, this was also what Jin desired. Because he didn't like the Runkandle Empire either. He only liked the Jin Runkandle Empire. At the same time, the silver-haired man demanded that everyone here bow down to Zippel. Hearing this name, Jin remembered that the Zippel clan was a famous family of wizards who ruled the other half of the world. If the Runkandle clan was famous for its ultimate swordsmanship, the Zippel clan, in contrast, had reached the pinnacle of magic. 1,000 years ago, after the founder of Runkandel passed away, Zippel issued a humiliating demand to strip magic from Runkandel. This led to magic being sealed in Runkandel, and thus, to Runkandel, the Zippel clan became their 1,000-year enemy. This also explained why someone would dare to assassinate a child of the Runkandel clan at this time. So, a follower of the Zippel clan. With that, Jin ordered the man to be killed directly, with no need for further interrogation, as it would be fruitless. Jin guessed that this incident was not orchestrated by Zippel, but was the rogue action of their followers. But the strange thing was, how did they get past Gilly, a 7-star knight? Perhaps it was that man's doing. After taking down the other man, Jin turned to the captain of the Black King squadron, Muketa, and told him to quickly set up a transfer gate. Besides, he was safe earlier thanks to them diverting the two men's attention, so he promised to report it and reward them handsomely. Hearing Jin's instructions, Muketa immediately agreed and told his soldiers to quickly create a transfer gate. He could sense great power from the young master. For a child of only 10 to have such confidence and maturity, the things he heard earlier were truly not just empty words. Muketa once again warned his subordinates to be careful with their actions and absolutely not to do anything foolish. This left his subordinates wondering what their captain had gotten into. Gilly turned and said they could leave now, so everyone set off immediately. On the way, Gilly asked privately if it was safe to leave the bodies of the two men there. Jin replied that it was a warning to their accomplices. It would be about 2 more hours to the nearest village, so they would stay there for the time being until the snow stopped. Jin noticed Gilly was blaming herself for this mistake, so he comforted her, saying that even a 9-star knight like Khan hadn't noticed, so it was normal for a 7-star warrior like her to have difficulty detecting it. Beside him were Gilly's constant apologies, even though Jin clearly didn't blame her. Just like in his previous life, as a nanny for the Runkandel house, her fate was bound to the child she raised. With Jin in his previous life being a failure, Gilly was also looked down upon and humiliated, but she never once resented Jin. On the day Jin was expelled from the Runkandel clan, Gilly was also kicked out like him. And she had said to Jin, "Young master, I am sorry for not being able to take good care of you." She was the one who always treated him well in this family, so now Jin really didn't want to make things difficult for someone who was always by his side. But now, things were different, and Gilly needed to strengthen her resolve. So Jin turned and gave Gilly a lecture on principles. If you keep blaming yourself for trivial matters like this, you won't be able to be my nanny and escort in the future. Therefore, I don't want to see you in this state ever again. After those words, Gilly gradually regained her composure. She realized that the young master always cared for her, so from now on, she had to be more careful to ensure the young master wouldn't face a similar situation again. Seeing Gilly like this, Jin also felt somewhat relieved. 2 hours passed, and everyone arrived at an inn in the village. While Muketa was booking rooms, Jin thought about the 2 disguised guards from earlier. With such perfect transformation, there was only one person who could do it. The transformation wizard, Buber Gastov. Transformation is a strength of the dragon race, but even dragons cannot achieve perfect transformation. Only Bubare was the unique existence who created that perfect transformation. He used that ability to disguise himself and commit various crimes to cause chaos in the world. If Jin's guess was correct, and Buba was involved in this, things would be very troublesome. Although he hadn't done anything too terrible yet, who knew about tomorrow? In his previous life, when Jin turned 20, Buba would be caught by the special task force Bement. If I could recruit him to my side, it would be very useful. But the problem is, there's no reason to invite him. And so, after a long day with a head full of thoughts, Jin fell asleep, without even realizing it. A moment later, Meowing sounds came from the window. The cries woke Jin up, and he realized that this cat was very unusual. That's right. It was Murakhan who had said he would follow him secretly. As soon as Murakhan was let in, he flared up in anger because Jin dared to mock him, but he forgot his supporting role and was taken down by the floor, falling flat on his face. Hearing the noise, Gilly from outside also burst in and saw a stranger near her young master, so she decided to fight this old lecher to the death. Just as Murakhan was about to be turned to ashes, Jin thankfully managed to stop her in time. Murakhan, hearing the familiar name Gilly, remembered his little strawberry tart. He quickly put on a handsome face, hoping to eat strawberry tarts for the rest of his life. While in the distance, Jin could only watch this scene, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. After enough playing around, Jin introduced him to Gilly. This is the Black Dragon Murakhan, the guardian god of the Runkandel clan. Then he turned to introduce Gilly to the other. Gilly, realizing she had just made a huge mistake with the guardian god, bowed her head in apology. But since she was his little strawberry tart, everything was forgiven. By Murakhan, Gilly wondered why Lord Murakhan kept calling her little strawberry tart. The reason was because she was both wonderful and beautiful and made perfect strawberry tart. Only now did Gilly realize why the young master requested strawberry tarts every day. After that, the three of them sat down for Jin to slowly explain everything. First about him being able to use magic, then about being Salderet's contractor, and now about a dragon. Gilly wasn't sad that the young master she had always served hadn't told her anything. Instead, she was surprised and happy for him. In short, she was now in on it with everyone and needed to keep the secret of Murakhan's awakening from the clan. But it didn't matter because Gilly now had a black dragon protecting her. Now Gilly wondered about the noise when Lord Murakhan transformed earlier, whether it was over, and hoped he would be more careful when transforming next time. But it turned out he had fallen flat on his face. It wasn't because of his transformation at all. And so, this dragon lost a point of credibility in the eyes of Jin and Gilly. A few hours later, everyone reached the Mytel transfer gate after the snowstorm had subsided for a while. Gilly thanked the captain of the Black King squadron for his efforts throughout the protection detail, and it was certain that in a few days, his entire team would be handsomely rewarded. As for Muketa, he was even more eager to see the future that young master Jin Runkandel, who had been cared for by Gilly, would create. Besides, he had a question he couldn't understand. Why would someone with outstanding talent, like Miss Gilly, leave the McLaurin family to become a nanny for the Runkandel young master? Gilly went back inside without answering the question. The captain, seeing this, didn't press her further and quickly apologized for his tactless question. And so, everyone bid farewell to the Black King squadron and entered the inspection area of the Mytel transfer gate. After showing their identification and seeing they were from the Runkandel clan, they were naturally treated as VIPs and seated in the most premium seats. But for now, Jin would probably have to wait 2 hours to reach Hufester. While waiting, Gilly told Jin that it was very likely Murakhan would be exposed, and as a servant she was extremely worried for the young master's safety. But Jin just said he would do his best to hide his magic in Murakhan's situation, which reassured Gilly somewhat. At the same time, as the two were talking, other people also entered. The other person's coat bore the emblem of the Golden Dragon. It was none other than the Zippel clan, Runkandel's 1,000-year enemy. Jin recognized the person opposite him looked very familiar, but couldn't recall who it was at the moment. While he was thinking, the person opposite him spoke up sarcastically, saying, "Perhaps we shouldn't go to Hufester today, because we might see some annoying rats there." But he found himself interested in the black cat Murakhan had transformed into. He intended to tease this lump of coal a bit, but it wasn't easy. Murakhan vented Jin's anger for him with a swipe, startling the Zippel guy. With the authority of their young master, he ordered his guard to be polite before the Runkandel house, because drawing a sword in front of the Runkandel clan was nothing short of a joke. He now thought to himself that he had just wanted to tease that Runkandel guy a bit, but didn't expect him not to react. Guessing this was the calm youngest son of the Runkandel family, he stood up and introduced himself. I would like to apologize for my rudeness a few moments ago. Jin recalled this name from his previous life. This was the genius mage. the most likely to inherit the Zippel clan and the ideal role model for young mages. A person with both skill and style. Jin had once thought this person would far surpass him in terms of a mage's skills, but he never expected to meet him when they were the same age. After that, Jin also introduced himself and wondered what kind of person Veridin was. It's good to know the person in front of me isn't an idiot. Faced with Jin's somewhat sarcastic question, Veridin just gave a forced smile and asked Jin back for his assessment. Although I was just joking, if those two guards had really drawn their swords, I might have had to circle around Hufester without those guards. And I might have lost a few fingers too, Jin replied calmly. Veridin waved his hand dismissively, implying that Jin's joke was more violent than his own earlier. But do I look like I'm joking right now? Jin retorted in a stern voice, making Veridin's face turn pale as he quickly changed the subject. Veridin thought that in the future, when Jin met another Zippel, he shouldn't just casually cut off their fingers, as that would cause pain for both clans. But Jin found Veridin's joke quite amusing because, as he knew, his father Chiron Runkendel and Veridin's father Celiac Zippel wouldn't interfere in the affairs of their children. Hearing this, Veridin feigned surprise and laughed it off, saying he had learned something from Jin and would repay this debt later. But our Jin was not an easygoing person. He wanted Veridin to pay up immediately, otherwise he might flake later. Jin wanted Veridin to repay the debt by keeping his mouth shut until the transfer gate activated. As for Veridin, the more he looked, the more fascinated he was by Jin, thinking he would likely become much stronger in the future. If it weren't for our two factions, I would have befriended him right away. His two guards, seeing their master like this, could only hide their faces in shame. What a loss of image. As for Jin, seeing that Zippel guy still hovering around him even after he had threatened to cut off his finger, made him feel helpless. Could it be that this Zippel clan has a problem? Are they all crazy? And so, 2 hours passed. The transfer gate was temporarily opened, and everyone could now begin teleporting to their desired destinations. Before leaving, Veridin shouted loudly that it was great to meet Jin and hoped to see him again. But on this side, it was different. Of course, he didn't want a next time with that busybody. After some time, the teleportation was complete. Before Jin now was the main residence of the Runkandel family. The person in front was the second butler, Pedro. Now, Jin would begin his new life in this mansion, the main mansion of the family, named the Garden of Swords. Here, those who had contributed to the prosperity of Runkandel would have the honor of planting their swords in this garden. In other words, this place was a symbol, a dream, and an honor for all Runkandel members. The Jin of the past was a weak person with no talent, a person who was neither a leader nor intelligent, and it was even more foolish to think that just trying would change everything. He promised himself that this time, in this priceless place, he would live a life more meaningful than anyone else's. Stepping inside, he was greeted by his father and older siblings. The woman nicknamed Black Panther, Rosa Runkandel, the matriarch of the Runkandel clan, spoke up to greet her youngest son with a probing expression. Meanwhile, the black cat, Murakan's gaze met that of Patriarch Chiron. He asked if Jin had picked it up, to which he replied, "I have taken it in, father." This delicate answer was a big plus for Chiron. That's right, for a Runkandel, when receiving something, this was the appropriate response. Rosa Runkandel bent down to pet Murakan and asked Jin what the little one's name was. Jin replied, "His name is Butterfly Runkandel, mother." This greatly surprised her. And of course, the other children who heard it were just as surprised that Jin dared to add the Runkandel surname to his pet. They turned to blame the nanny Gilly for how she taught Jin, until Patriarch Chiron stepped in and told everyone to be quiet. He asked his youngest son, "Why did you add the Runkandel surname to this cat?" Jin replied that by doing so, he would be responsible for it. Although it was just an animal, it was the first life he had taken in, so he thought its name should also have value. Hearing that answer, Chiron was even more surprised, but he asked Jin back, "Do you know the weight of the Runkandel name and understand it?" Jin, of course, understood better than anyone. If someone were to insult Butterfly, the one who would pay the price would be him. Hearing that, Chiron just pointed at him and said, "It seems you have a great talent for making enemies." then pointed towards his siblings who were staring at him. It seems so. However, I am also very talented at eliminating enemies, father, Jin replied calmly to his father. Hearing this, Chiron laughed so hard he could have split his jaw, having gotten such a satisfactory child. He then left, warning his other children to be worried if they wanted to deal with this insolent youngest brother of theirs. 4 years passed in a flash. On an early summer day in 1794, Jin was now 14 years old and a 2-star knight, a low-ranking cadet of the Runkendale clan. Jin was talking to another person about today's training plan. He requested that today's training session end here because the young master had an appointment with Lady Luna. This is Garen, a low-ranking instructor of the Runkendale Cadet Guard team. All right, I'll go get something to eat. Are you still eating outside with the other cadets today, young master? Garen asked as he saw Jin leaving. And, as always, Jin didn't want to eat with his siblings and have to participate in a staring contest during the meal. Although Lady Rosa was not pleased with Jin's actions, there was nothing else to be done but to report back to her. While waiting for his food, a low-ranking cadet guard named Bellop brought food for Jin and greeted him. Bellop Schmitz, 13 years old, is a commoner. After failing the training examination, he was facing the removal of his cadet status and expulsion. Despite that, he always felt grateful to the Runkendale clan. Thanks to them, he got to eat these delicious meals, and especially young Master Jean, who always shared his meat with him. Jin thought Bellop was exaggerating a bit and told him to stop. He had clearly said the same thing yesterday. Then Jin gave him some advice, telling Bellop to be more mature and live confidently. You are a cadet guard of Runkendale. That way, no one will dare to look down on you anymore. But Bellop was still too naive. It's no exaggeration to say that he had been targeted by Jin's family. But how did they turn someone like Bellop, after being taught by a master swordsman, into a loyal dog of the Empire? When he heard the news that he became a royal guard and committed suicide not long after, Jin was heartbroken. So this time, Jin was determined not to abandon Bellop and to ensure he wouldn't be expelled from Runkendale and become like he was in the previous life. Because living a miserable life and then dying once was more than enough. On his way to meet his eldest sister, Jin was mentally calculating the steps to becoming a supreme master. At this rate, he could achieve 3-star swordsmanship in 2 more years. Meanwhile, Luna was waiting in the courtyard. She requested, "Youngest, use a different method to defend against my attack from yesterday." Jin, look with your mind's eye. So Jin closed his eyes and began to sense this was a type of training he had never heard of before. Look with your soul's eye. For those who live to sharpen their swords, having the soul's eye is more important than anything, Luna constantly reminded Jin. Normally, a swordsman's soul eye is only achieved at a level higher than 7 stars, but now she was teaching him when he was only a 2-star knight. Furthermore, a normal soul eye is achieved by dispersing aura, but since Jin couldn't perform it during practice, he found it even harder to understand. But in any case, everything Sister Luna does is for my own good, so I'll choose to trust her. The only thing to do now is focus on training, and one day I'll understand this exercise. After a while, Luna also ended the practice session. You did well today. You can go back now. Luna sensed that this youngest brother always did very well, exceeding even her expectations. With that potential and focus, Luna was sure Jin would understand it clearly in the next few years. On this side, all the cadets were gathering for the test. This battle would account for a significant portion of the final grade, and it was also a shortcut to becoming a guardian knight, so everyone was likely quite anxious. Besides, today was also an important day for Jin, because Lady Rosa said that if he defeated 10 people of higher rank today, she would let him join the intermediate class at the beginning of next year. Jin glanced over at Bellop and saw him trembling with anxiety as usual. He knew he had Jin's help, but he should also be more confident. At the same time, Garon also announced the competition format. Everyone would fight 3 times and switch partners each time. The top 10 would fight one-on-one with young Master Jin. And so, everyone was divided into brackets and began to charge at each other. Jin, watching from the sidelines, saw that these people all had decent skills. Clearly, their internship diplomas weren't for nothing. After a long time fighting, the strongest were also found. Garen asked those not chosen to return to their places, then turned to Jin and told him to get ready. And so, Jin began to fight the 10 strongest people here. Some more time passed, and now Jin had defeated 8 people, with only 2 more to go to meet the quota. But to do that, the person he needed to pay attention to was Mesa Milcano. She was a noble who would become a guardian knight after passing all the internship processes in the future. Today, I will defeat you at all costs, Mesa said as she stepped forward. In response was Jin's expectant expression. Today's match with Mesa was the most important thing in this test. Clearly, Mesa was stronger than before, but not to the point that Jin couldn't defeat her. Jin decided to use a simple attack to counter, even though Mesa had displayed all her skills, which greatly surprised him. Mesa was sure he was doing it on purpose. But why? Could it be that young Master Jin was looking down on her or thought she couldn't defeat him? Seeing Jin's opening, Mesa immediately attacked it, telling herself that this time she wouldn't be pushed back and would defeat the young master. Mesa leaped into the air to deliver a finishing blow to Jin, but unexpectedly, he easily blocked it, at the same time causing Mesa's wooden sword to break in 2. While she was still trying to understand what happened, the tip of Jin's sword was already at her throat. And so, the winner of this match was still Jin Runkandil. Mesa couldn't believe Jin had attacked the same spot on her sword, with those simple strikes. Even though their strength and stamina were equal, he had won through strategy and precision. Even so, she promised that next time she would definitely defeat the young master. And then the next match went as planned. By defeating the best, Mesa, the other trainees would enter the battle with the mindset of losing if they fought directly. And then the 10th trainee was also defeated. Garen from the sidelines congratulated the young master and announced that he would be trained by a true Runkandel guardian in the intermediate group next year. Just as Garen was about to dismiss everyone, Jin suddenly stopped him. He still wanted to fight one more person, and that was Bellop Smith in Flat. Hearing his name from the young master's mouth, Bellop jumped. How could he believe that the young master, who had defeated 10 trainees, would fight a failure like him? Bellop, you can't survive in Runkandel if you keep this up, Jin said, pointing his sword straight at him. Step right up and fight me, I will defeat you. And so, with trembling steps, Bellop walked towards Jin, his mind still filled with questions of why the young master chose him. Is it because I'm weak, so I can help him improve the army's discipline? Just then, Jin called out to Bellop. He said he had just fought 10 people and was still quite tired. But you, on the other hand, look quite fine, don't you? These words directly made the surrounding trainees laugh, and Bellop was also embarrassed. Before Bellop could answer, Jin added, I am still much stronger than you. That's why I want to fight you. This greatly surprised Bellop, as he didn't think the young master he respected would be like this. Retracting his words, Jin rushed at Bellop with all his might, but Bellop still managed to block the blow and asked again, why has the young master become like this? But Jin didn't say much more, and continuously attacked Bellop, striking at his vital points. Bellop now looked up at the young master and wondered, why are you doing this to me? And the reply was just 2 words. Fight, I want to fight you, then I can kill you. This successfully angered the kind-hearted Bellop. He picked up his wooden sword and began to use aura, to the surprise of those around him. No one could have imagined that the failure Bellop could use aura. Even the strongest people here weren't sure they could do that. Seeing this, Mesa requested that the instructor, Garon, quickly stop the match, otherwise young Master Jin would be in danger. But Jin requested that everyone just keep this a secret and not interfere, so Garen could only obey. Bellop asked one last time if this was what the young master truly wanted, and of course Jin very much wanted Bellop not to back down, and to come at him with all his might. And so, Bellop raised his sword imbued with aura and shouted, if the young master wanted to fight, the first person you should have sought was me, not those other 10. Jin used his sword to block the blow, but since he wasn't using aura, the sword shattered, and he was knocked back. Jin knew Bellop was very strong, but he didn't expect him to be this strong. Every time he fought someone else, he could always see through their skills and tactics. Furthermore, he even knew how to intentionally lose without getting hurt. But Jin had never guessed that he could use aura at this age. And then, With clashing sounds, the impact between the two left a wound on Bellup's hand, which quite surprised him. And then Bellup was quickly taken down by another surprise attack from Jin. Thinking he would be killed right there, he was extremely confused when Jin let go and stood up. Bellup couldn't understand the young master's strange actions. "You clearly wanted to fight me, so you should have finished the match. Do you find it fun to play with others like this? Do you see me as that kind of person?" Jin replied calmly. "Truthfully, provoking you in this way also makes me very sad. It hurts me more than you think." It was true that Jin didn't understand anything about Bellup and didn't know who he was, but there was one thing Jin knew. That was care could only be possessed when one was strong. Therefore, a kind person like Bellup couldn't survive on this earth. Bellup, get stronger so you can protect this kind heart. A kind heart for me and others. And finally, I apologize for doing things like this. At the same time, the servants also brought food during the break, and seeing the training wasn't over, were about to leave. But Jin told them to just bring it in. It was fine. This time, Bellup was braver and asked the young master to go get today's portion. And of course, that was also what Jin expected. He happily agreed and went to get portions for both of them. "So that's why my youngest son said that?" "Yes, Patriarch." Khan was reporting the situation to Patriarch Chiron about Jin's recent actions. "I see the boy is making a choice, isn't he? He intends to protect the weak while ruling through force. If that's the case, then let him continue. I want to see what he can do." Chiron instructed Khan, "I will give the boy his first mission." In January 1795, Jin was now 15 years old and recognized as a 3-star knight. During the first vacation, some students returned to their hometowns. The rest trained on their own to check their progress. Upon reaching the intermediate level, wooden swords would no longer be used for practice. Instead, they would use customized real swords. Therefore, many students had commissioned craftsmen to make their own personal swords. Jin was no exception. He was also looking for a sword that suited him in the clan's armory. But unfortunately, his sister Luna wanted to find one for Jin, so the decision now rested in her hands. Jin remembered that a month ago, Luna had tormented him to insist on getting the right to choose a sword for him. "Oh well, Luna has a better eye than me anyway, so the chosen sword will probably be a good fit." Jin could only console himself. As soon as he finished his thought, Luna emerged from the armory, carrying a massive sword. A huge question mark appeared in Jin's mind. Could it be that I trusted the wrong person? But Luna looked at her brother and confidently said, "This sword is called Slaughter Curtain. I used it a lot when I was your age. A sword both large and sharp, with no flaws to be found. This must be the original form of the Krantel I used to use." With that, Luna finally turned to ask Jin if he liked the sword she had chosen. Faced with this awkward question, our Jin was racking his entire imagination for an answer. But truthfully, Jin felt it didn't really suit him. Hearing that, Luna's face clearly showed sadness, as she had put a lot of thought into choosing a sword for her brother. Then, Luna led Jin into the armory. She wanted a sword that only Jin could use, and this was Luna's choice. Since Jin had chosen Barasada from the beginning, this sword was probably the most suitable, because this sword was directly connected to the Barasada sword that the first patriarch had used. Jin picked up the Bradamante and said with delight, "This is truly the most special sword among thousands of excellent swords." This was the sword Jin had once told himself he had to have at all costs, and he never expected his sister Luna to choose it for him. Both Barasada and Bradamante were very suitable for using shadow energy. If Jin had chosen this sword himself, the others would have definitely objected and forced him to give it up. Jin was very grateful to his sister Luna for choosing this sword for him, because all his other siblings wanted to possess it. Hearing that, Luna felt a little sad. Thinking Jin still hadn't let his guard down with her, she placed her hand on Jin and said that although relatives always tried to bring each other down, they were also the ones who loved him unconditionally. So remember that in your heart, and don't be sad anymore. Luna had lived a lonely life in her own family even before Jin was born, so she hoped Jin would understand that she didn't want her brother to go through a life like that too. After saying that, Luna finally let Jin go and left for him to practice on his own. Very quickly, Jin returned to his room to show off his sword to Murakhan. He thought he would be praised, but unexpectedly, Murakhan advised him to return it to its place because Jin still hadn't mastered shadow power. He said that to use Bradamanti, he would at least need to reach the 3rd star of shadow power. But right now, you're just a 2-star kid. Then I'll reach the 3rd star soon and be able to use it. Hearing this, Murakhan slammed the book he was reading shut and angrily said, "What an arrogant brat. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say, you little squirt. Barasada and Bradamante are not 2 swords you can use carelessly. The 3rd star of shadow power is just the minimum power level." Then Murakhan tapped Jin on the head and told him to just use normal swords and wait until his shadow power reached the 5th star. But as we know, Jin was an impatient person, so he swatted Murakhan's hand away and confidently promised that within this year, he would definitely reach the 5th star of shadow power. Hearing this, Murakhan got even angrier. It was like playing a lute to a cow. He had been saying all this for the kid's own good, but he was just getting more and more unreasonable. Seeing the old dragon constantly scolding him, Jin decided to play a trick on him. He reached out and snatched the book Murakhan was reading while he was still rambling on. Seeing his favorite comic about to be torn, Murakhan finally raised his hands in surrender and didn't dare to make another peep. At the same time, Gilly entered from outside and said that the instructor, Garen, was looking for the young master. He was supposed to come here himself, but he needed to brief the strategy, so he needed him to go there. Seeing the urgency, Jin temporarily spared Murakhan and followed Gilly. Gilly also added that this time, a mission was being assigned to the young master, and they would depart as soon as the vacation ended. Hearing this, Jin wasn't surprised, as he was now a 3-star swordsman. Besides, he had been progressing quite quickly lately, which was why he was given a mission like this. With that, Jin told Gilly to stay with Murakhan while he went to check things out. A moment later, Jin arrived and saw the others studying a map, preparing for the mission. Besides him, there were also 10 junior students who would be participating. Garen clearly stated the strategy. Everyone would be divided into 2 teams to carry out a search mission in the area near the southern border of the Zhan Empire. The Jin Empire is a place close to the land of monsters and the den of the White Wolf tribe, so it is very dangerous. Jin thought missions like this shouldn't be given to low-level students. The execution time was also shorter than usual, and among the participants was Bellup, whose results were unstable. This proved that only his father could have given this mission to test his youngest son. Therefore, this time, Jin wanted to show his father his unwavering confidence even more. 3 days later, at the southern border, the target of this search operation was the heir of the Jin family, Jean Semberville. Everyone decided to set up a guard camp in the center of the southern border until the preparations were complete. After that, the teams would begin the search. The teams would share information by sending someone to the camp at a specific time each day. Furthermore, no one would call Jin Young Master, but Commander if someone was injured. They would stay at the camp to rest if necessary. At this moment, a person was reporting to Jin about the discovery of the Aqua Lizard tribe. Jin learned that they were a gentle tribe who avoided carnivores, so staying there might help them avoid the White Wolf tribe. With that, Jin ordered Bellup to set out 2 hours early for Area 13 because he would be slowed down by the snow while the rest would follow him. Very quickly, everyone arrived at the Aqua Lizard tribe's settlement. In his mind, Jin couldn't stop thinking about this mission. He had a bad feeling about it because his father had given the mission directly, but everything was going too smoothly. Oh, everyone looks so poor. As he spoke, a member of the Aqua Lizard tribe gave Jin a fish and told him to eat. It had to be said, this tribe really looked down on people. Jin looked at the map and thought to himself that besides Area 13, which was monster territory, there would be no one who could match their group in the other areas, so there was no need to worry too much. As soon as he finished his thought, the sound of hurried footsteps approached. It was Bellup, returning to report that Team 2 had been ambushed. Jin immediately had all forces prepare to move. Meanwhile, Bellup also added that Team 2 had been dispersed to avoid the enemy, and one person had managed to escape to the guard camp to report the situation. Monsters ambushed them? Jin asked further. No. They were ambushed by 3 humans. Hearing this, Jin found it a bit illogical, as there was no way anyone would dare to attack Runkendel with just 3 people. Knowing the situation, Jin told Eddington and David to return to the camp to guard, while the others would follow him towards Team 2 to rescue them. After walking for a while, everyone discovered blood on the snow. Seeing this, Bellup was horrified, fearing that Mesa would be in danger, since she was also in Team 2. But according to Jean's assessment, these bloodstains were still fresh, and there were no signs of a recent struggle. This meant that a battle had likely taken place here and Team 2 had fled. The footprints indicated that only one person had ambushed them. At the same time, another person found discarded bandages to the west nearby. They seemed to belong to Hefester, so now they knew their travel route. At the same time, another person found discarded bandages to the west nearby. They seemed to belong to Hefester, so now they knew their travel route. With that, Jin told Sierra to return and join the group at the camp, while he and Bellup would head west to search. After walking for a while, the 2 of them found Team 2. They were being suppressed by the ambushers, and the number of ambushers had also increased by 1 from the beginning. Bellup, close your eyes for a moment, then in 2 seconds, attack the one on the left, Jin said while activating his shadow power. The characteristic of shadow power is its sharpness and destructive nature. 19. Jin coated the knife in shadow energy and threw it at one of the men in front of him, causing him to collapse on the spot. At the same time, Bellup also attacked the nearby man as planned. While they were still confused, this guy managed to detect Bellup in time and blocked his sneak attack. But there were 2 of them here. After dealing with the other guy, Jin turned and drew his sword towards the one Bellup was fighting. With a sword strike to the leg, the remaining man also knelt at Jin's feet. Seeing that everyone was only temporarily injured and not too seriously, he was relieved. But Mesa had been taken. As for the other guy, he was begging for his life with a fearful expression. "You are begging me for mercy? From your perspective, you seem to be the foolish disciples of Zippel. I will give you 2 choices. 1. You die peacefully after confessing everything. 2. You keep your mouth shut and suffer like your comrades," Jin said while looking at him with a chilling gaze. "I will keep my promise because my name is Jin Runkendel. I promise on my family's code and my honor." Hearing that, the guy had no choice but to confess everything. They belonged to a revolutionary group called Kinzello. Kinzello was a terrorist organization active during the time Jin died. The world was in chaos when they killed King of Jin and massacred the people. They called themselves a revolutionary group, but the revolution Kim talked about was making their king the king of the world. Jin asked if they wanted to start a rebellion in the kingdom of Jin by killing Runkendel soldiers. "I'm just a lackey, so I don't know that much. I also don't know where the base is, but the group I operate in is located at the entrance to the monster territory. There are about 20 soldiers and 4-star mages." The guy answered hastily. As for why they captured Mesa, it was to promote and publicize the revolutionary army. As for the reason, he didn't know either. And as promised, Jin would send this guy on his way in the gentlest way possible. Then Jin turned to ask everyone how long Mesa had been captured. He learned that an hour had passed since then. Jin told everyone to treat their wounds first, then go call for reinforcements to their den. "Excuse me, are you really going alone?" one of the trainees asked. "The people among them are all 4-star, and there are 20 of them in total. If you go alone, it would be too dangerous, young master." And he suggested it would be safer for everyone to go with him. That's true, but a soldier has been captured. As the son of the Runkendel family, I can't do nothing. Besides, I'm stronger than you think, so just obey. Furthermore, Bellup, since all the members of Team 2 are now injured, you must stay alert and bring everyone back safely. Jin instructed everyone and then quickly headed towards the monster territory with only one hope, that he wouldn't be too late. As he walked, Jin thought, "My enemies are 20 4-star individuals, including both warriors and mages, and I have 3-star swordsmanship, 4-star magic, and about 3-star shadow energy. If I fight them directly now, I don't stand a chance, so the top priority is just to rescue Mesa and avoid any confrontation if possible." Then Jin cast a terrain inspection technique, followed by the wind chaser magic. Quickly, Jin knew their direction of movement and immediately gave chase. As he was rushing forward, he was ambushed by a group of people. They had discovered he was a member of Run Kandel and intended to eliminate him immediately. However, in response was Jin's wind slaughter magic, which put one of them to sleep on the spot. The remaining men were surprised, as it was their first time seeing a Runkandel use magic. Well, I have to deal with him first and then think. But they never expected that Jin's swordsmanship was in no way inferior. You! Get out of the way! The fire mage, while casting his skill, shouted to his comrade. He threw a fireball towards Jin and successfully enveloped his arm. But then it seemed the fire had no effect on him. A moment of carelessness is a trip to see your ancestors. The swordsman let his guard down and was sent on his way by Jin. As for the fire on his hand, it was gradually absorbed by Jin because he had eaten the phoenix heart. The mage, seeing that fire was ineffective, switched to using ice. With that, he released thousands of ice shards, intending to tear him to pieces. But unexpectedly, Jin easily shattered those ice shards and rushed forward. Impossible! The mage shouted in fear. And so, under the blood moon, the mage's blood stained the ground below. It seemed the Kinzello men had no intention of hiding their tracks. Jin approached and discovered they had met someone else here, and moved by cart. Kinzello was a group with a proper hierarchy, so they probably divided their spoils according to rank, because they wouldn't dare to touch the spoils of a higher-ranking person. Now was the chance to rescue Mesa safely. Then Jin took out the map and saw that he was near the territory of the monsters, so their base must also be nearby. If so, he would distract them and take the opportunity to rescue Mesa. Jin cast a fire spell, burning a large area of the forest around the region. If he did this, they would surely come out to extinguish the fire. On the Kinzello's campsite, they had also discovered the fire. Just as Jin predicted, all of their people were busy extinguishing the fire. Jin observed the group and saw a burly man giving orders. Perhaps he was their leader. The boss saw that this fire was unusual, and for a fire to suddenly appear in such cold weather, someone must have started it. He ordered his subordinates to quickly find that person. At the same time, Jin was already standing right behind the boss as he was giving orders. By the time he noticed, it was already too late. Jin had gotten the key to get inside from this man. A moment later, Jin was searching through all the rooms inside, but still hadn't found any clues. Just then, a cellar caught his eye. Indeed, when he went down to the cellar, this was where Mesa was imprisoned. She was very surprised that the young master was here. This place is too dangerous. Why are you here? Don't worry about me. Can you walk? Jin replied and asked back. Mesa said she could walk, but probably couldn't run. While Jin was cutting the ropes to get Mesa out, a strong vibration came from above. Seeing the dangerous situation, Mesa wished for one thing, that if they were in real danger, she wanted the young master to leave her behind and run first. No matter what Mesa said, Jin just carried her up. Above, everything had exploded, and countless Kinzello members were dead. This was the work of the monsters from the White Wolf tribe. They were fanatics of fighting and killing. Mesa urged the young master to run quickly, while she would buy time, but she was quickly knocked unconscious by a blow. The White Wolf turned to Jin and asked, "Are you the one who caused all this?" The "this" he was referring to was the fire. Jin wasn't afraid, and confidently affirmed, "I am Jin Runkandel, the son of Chiron Runkandel." The White Wolf, hearing this, was amused by Jin's words. Runkandel, that's right. Today is the day I hunted the most valuable prey. The White Wolf, Truca, roared with delight. As is known, the White Wolf tribe is a tribe famous for being bellicose and bloodthirsty. The adults of the White Wolf tribe are at least 6-star warriors. Everyone knows the White Wolf tribe extremely hates the Runkandel clan. And the reason for that is because the first patriarch of Runkandel invited their god, the great White Wolf Javier, and killed him. Now Jin definitely couldn't escape from him with Mesa. At the same time, Truca also shouted, "I will sacrifice you to Javier so his soul can rest in peace." Then he turned to give Jin two choices. 1, a battle of honor between the two of them, or 2, they would be torn to shreds while fleeing like cowards. Of course, Jin would choose to fight a battle of honor with him, Jin said, as he pointed the tip of his sword towards him. Just as Truca expected, Jin was a Runkandel with honor. "Let's have a proper fight." Truca lifted his hammer and took his stance. He intended to strike first, and then, with a whoosh, Truca gripped the hammer tightly and rushed forward with incredible speed, overwhelming Jin. In those moments of combat, just one block from Truca's attack made Jin's hand ache. It seemed this time, Jin had to use all his strength to hope for a victory. Jin's chances were still there because he still had trump cards that he didn't know about: the pendant, magic, and shadow energy. Using the pendant now wasn't worth it. If he couldn't overcome this himself, he wouldn't be able to get stronger. Using magic was also not suitable as the White Wolf tribe had very high magic resistance. Besides, if someone came to investigate, they would also discover traces of magic and reveal the Runkandel clan's taboo. So there was only one choice left: shadow energy. "Release my sword!" Jin shouted as he attacked Truca with the white sword Bradamante in his hand. "Good sword," Runkandel brought, "but it's still not as good as your clan's famous black sword," Truca mocked him. Then once again, he swung the heavy hammer in his hand towards Jin, hoping to take him down quickly. Jin was struggling to cope with Truca's continuous attacks while coming up with a suitable combat strategy. He recalled the moment he released his sword that night, and then a black mist enveloped the white sword, Bradamante. Jin swung his sword to block Truca's hammer. To his surprise, the power of shadow had obscured the White Wolf's vision, making him unable to see anything. At the same time, Jin's hair was flying in the wind. Jin had delivered the finishing blow to his enemy. Now Jin also understood why his clan was famous for their black sword. Before him, Truca had fallen. But in the deep night, shadows were slowly approaching Jin, including the shadow of the fallen Truca. His body was being possessed by the shadows. "You useless thing, as weak as you are, what can you do? What a fool who doesn't understand his situation. You are the disgrace of the Runkandel clan." Constantly, curses came from them. And finally, a familiar shadow. The shadow of the black dragon Murakan also arrived. "I told you what would happen if you tried to release with insufficient shadow energy. Do you plan to eat dirt when you're possessed by shadow energy? Get up. If you lose your mind, there's no cure." Jin, faced with the words of the shadow Murakan, also knew what he needed to do: release the shadow energy. Previously, it was being wiped out by the surrounding shadow energy, so he needed to do it again slowly and calmly. A moment later, it seemed Jin had overcome the recent incident. The pain was gone from his body, but the only thing was, he felt his body was filled with that shadow energy. "Well, my body is fine for now, so I'll go rescue Mesa first." As soon as he stood up, he suddenly heard a rustling sound in front of him. A young man with blonde hair and a dazed expression came out, his voice trembling. "Please don't kill me." Jin thought it was some remaining Kinzello soldiers and was about to deal with them. But the other person quickly explained that he was from the kingdom of Jean Semberville. Jin knew this was the person he needed to rescue in this mission and introduced himself as Jin Runkandel. Semberville, knowing someone from the Runkandel family had come to rescue him, was so happy he cried. "Finally, I can leave this god-forsaken place alive." Jin carried the unconscious Mesa, and Sember began the journey back. Jin wondered how Kinzello managed to kidnap him, and learned that it was because Sember had followed his lover here. Actually, his lover had been dead for 2 years, but he didn't understand how there could be someone who looked exactly like her. From her face, her voice, even her every mole, that person had lured Sember to this place. Hearing this, Jin immediately thought of one person: Gaston. Only he could create such a perfect transformation. But what was the relationship between Kinzello and Gaston? He would probably have to meet him in person to see what kind of person he was. While he was still thinking of a way to find Gaston, next to him, Sember was rambling on, crying and thanking him. He even thought Jean had called for reinforcements because of him. If he could, he would probably change his gender and marry Jin right away. And so, a moment later, the reinforcements arrived, and everyone completed the mission safely. Back at the mansion, the nanny Gilly was overjoyed because the young master she cared for had completed his first mission. But right next to them was a murderous glare from Murakan. Jin immediately turned to sweet-talk him to gain an advantage. But Murakan was not easily fooled. "I clearly told you so many times not to release it." Murakan hit and scolded Jin at the same time. The cat's hits weren't enough, so he transformed into a human and continued hitting him. Is there anyone more important than the sole contractor of Solderit? Murakhan seriously asked Jin why he didn't use the pendant and used shadow energy instead. Jin said what he thought. Because I feel it's too wasteful. Hearing this, Murakhan's blood boiled even more, and he was about to deal with this guy right there. Luckily, the little strawberry tart intervened, saving Jin's life. Just then, Jin wondered, why do you know that I have awakened the sores? Your shadow energy went from the 3rd star to the semi-4th star. I'm not blind. Murakhan answered. Jin tried releasing his shadow energy and indeed felt overflowing with energy. You should be grateful to Solderit for letting you live, Murakhan said, seeing this. Among the 11 people who showed overload before, 9 died. Only you and I are left. Jin waved his hand and said he didn't need to worry, as he didn't want to go through that kind of pain again. Then he went to take a bath. Seeing this, Murakhan was furious and told the little strawberry tart to starve this brat until he came to his senses. But Gilly was on Jin's side, which broke Murakhan's heart a little. Inside the main hall, the people of the Runkandel clan were discussing how Jin had just defeated a member of the White Wolf tribe. This is truly illogical. How could a 3-star knight kill a White Wolf clansman? But perhaps there's an explanation for it. That wolf clansman was quite weak, said Anne Runkandel, the 9th candidate of the Runkandel family. Miu Runkandel, the 8th candidate, really didn't believe their mother would believe this. Anne went to ask the Tona brothers what they thought about this, and of course, they thought the same as the two of them. Daytona and Haytona were whispering to each other, did Jin really do that? Because they knew this younger brother was truly a monster. But the more urgent matter was that he was about to join the intermediate training class. If Jin went to the intermediate class, the two brothers were done for. The other two, seeing them whispering, asked, could it be that moving to the intermediate class scares you that much? It's best to answer honestly because your sister hates the tongues of liars the most. And so the two brats quickly confessed, we're very scared of Jin. As the older sister, she had to help her younger brothers, so Anne lent these two her slaves for them to use as they pleased. The intermediate class of Runkandel was actually a survival battle for those who were qualified, including cadets from the 3rd to the 5th star. Among them were newly joined cadets and those who had been stuck in the class for over 10 years. Anne and Mayu had gathered a small number of repeating cadets and turned them into their slaves. Hearing this, the Tona brothers' faces lit up. The 4 of them shared the common goal of hating Jin, but they had better be careful, because these 2 older siblings were not easygoing. In his room, Jin thought, joining the intermediate class is probably already decided. On the other hand, I've already reached the 4th star of shadow energy, and to use it effectively, I need to reach the 6th star of swordsmanship within 5 years. A 6-star swordsman means becoming an excellent swordsman, and starting from the 7th star, one would be considered a master swordsman, but that was only special to ordinary people. From the 8th star onwards, one would be called extraordinary, and everything would completely change. Furthermore, among the over 2 billion people on the entire continent, less than 100 had reached the 9th and 10th stars, and only one person had surpassed that standard demigod of the domain, the Genesis Knight, Chiron Runkandel. Jin promised himself that in this life, he would go further than his father, and the first bridge was his own advancement. Once he stepped into the advanced class, he would be supervised by all his older siblings. The beginner class was full of children of the same level, so it was quite friendly, but the intermediate class was different. In a place where strength and skill were the only things that mattered, the only thing he needed to do was dominate the intermediate class with absolute power. Come in. You summoned me? Yes. I heard you completed your mission safely, with excellent results. According to Petro's report, you refused my offer to change rooms. As you know, that room is only for those who could become the future patriarch. It has been empty ever since Joshua left. From now on, you shall use it. Jin thanked his mother but still firmly refused. Thank you, mother, but I will not use it. It may be a good room, but in the end, it's just a room. And for me, that room is a bit too much. Seeing that she couldn't persuade her son, Rosa let him leave. She really couldn't tell if her youngest son was not greedy or just too ambitious. The thing she just mentioned was the Elder's Chamber, the room for the future successor of Runkandel. Once one enters that room, They would receive corresponding treatment, but at that time, they would also become the target of the other siblings. Perhaps the boy realizes I'm testing him, Rosa thought to herself. Now, let's see how he performs in the intermediate class. From tomorrow, I will be studying in the intermediate class, and there will be many factions here. Since you are all considered to be on my side, you might suffer humiliation. But don't be afraid, because I won't let them get away with it, and they will stop when I conquer this intermediate class. Until then, you all need to travel in groups of at least 3 and try to avoid being alone. Understand? Jin instructed his friends who were advancing to the intermediate class with him. Zed Runkandel, an elder of Runkandel, an 8-star knight, and also the younger brother of Chiron Runkandel. He announced to the entire intermediate class that this year there were 10 new members and 27 trainees had withdrawn. Newcomers should learn the cadets' way of life from their seniors. My only job is to teach and grade your swordsmanship. Therefore, besides killing, all other situations are for you to resolve on your own. What have I always taught you, old soldiers? Runkandel has no need for the weak. Runkandel has no need for the weak, all the trainees shouted. Jin thought, these malicious words are meant to discourage the newcomers. Over there, are those the Tona brothers? The one standing next to them seems to be a long-time cadet. I think they didn't recruit him themselves, and this looks like it was with the intervention of Anne and Miyu. I'm sure they want to discourage the newcomers, but soon I'll show them they're wrong. As he thought, Jin walked towards the Tona brothers. What the hell? Why is that crazy guy coming this way? Hey, don't be a coward. We have Sister Anne and Miyu backing us. Tona comforted him in fear. The longtime cadet stood before Jin, but then with a slash, blood splattered, surprising everyone, including Lord Zed. An arm of the one who dared to block Jin's way was severed. This is the one who needs to be warned. Call a healer, Jin said calmly. Jin, you crazy bastard. Why did you suddenly swing your sword like that? Whispers came from the crowd. Jin turned to the other guy and asked, Cadet, what's your name? It's Kajin Romero, the other replied. Do you know why I slashed you? Daytona drew his sword and pointed it at Jin, asking, Hey, why are you ignoring us? Sheath your sword. Brother, don't you see I'm talking to Kajin? I'll accept a duel later, but for now, be quiet. You bastard! How dare you act like that after slashing my cadet? Daytona shouted, seeing this, but then realizing his own foolishness. He quickly covered his mouth. My cadet? So this friend belongs to your faction, brother? Jin asked. I only slashed him because he was looking at me provocatively. Is this a power struggle? Zed, from above, was very pleased with this display. Instead of being discouraged by his brothers, Jin had taught them a lesson. From what the Tona brothers said, Kajin had openly declared his allegiance to their faction. Therefore, Jin's action was not just a random act, but became part of the long-standing Runkandel tradition, the power struggle. Jin turned to the cadets and shouted, Cadets, listen up! I am Jin Runkandel. You can point your swords at me or ambush me like you just did. But if you show even the slightest disagreement, I won't hesitate to cut you down like I just did. Jin Runkandel, the 13th and youngest son of the patriarch. Do you think you're allowed to act like that in front of me? Zed spoke up. That's right. Because I don't think I'm fighting the 2 Tona brothers, but I'm fighting you, elder. Fighting you is very interesting now. Explain. Depending on your answer, I might just chop off your head right here, right now. Faced with Zed's threat, Jin still responded firmly. Without any hesitation, Jin said, Perhaps you have chosen to bully the new cadets even with me in this class. And I thought about it when someone attacked me. So you're unhappy about me intimidating the cadets and that's why you caused this mess? If that's the case, you should have swung your sword at me, not a long-time injured cadet. Zed asked further. That's because I haven't defeated you yet, Jin replied. If I knew I could win, I wouldn't have targeted Kajin, or my brothers, but you. It seems you don't value your life very much. Or are you relying on the fact that you're the patriarch's son? For Jin, of course, that wasn't the case. He said that avoiding an opponent was not something a Runkandel should do. Losing one's life is just a moment, but honor is eternal. How foolish. An arrogant brat like you has made your uncle laugh. All right, I'll yield to you now, because you are someone worthy of living in the Runcandle clan. Then Zed turned to everyone and told the cadets not to forget this day. What you are seeing now is the expression of the Runcandle clan. What this brat is showing us now is the characteristic of our clan's swordsmanship followers. Cadets, fight! Don't forget your characteristics. And now, dismiss. Training will begin tomorrow. Seeing the Tona brothers scowling nearby, Jin approached to give some advice. He told his two older brothers that although they might still be afraid of their older siblings now, would it still be the same in the future? Don't just keep looking at what's right in front of you. Looking at the bigger picture will be better for you. After that, Jin returned to his room and told Gilly and Murakan about the ranking battle with the Tona twins. But he thought it was probably his two older sisters, Anne and Mew, who were the masterminds and backing them. Jin also told them about how he had injured a cadet on their side, and after some more digging, it seemed he belonged to the faction of these two sisters. It was also because his brother had let it slip earlier, so now he was on their side. If she finds out about this, they'll be furious, because the two brothers can't possibly have a 5-star knight on their side, because people only accept those weaker than them into their faction. Gilly wondered, aren't both young ladies already candidates? There's an unwritten rule that candidates only confront other candidates. That's the key. Because they are both candidates, there's no reason for them to attack me, Jin replied. The only thing they can do is mess with the members of my team and the difficulty of the mission, thanks to their candidate privileges. But this is also a good thing, because in many high-difficulty missions, there are many solo missions, which means I can go all out in those. So for now, I just need to be grateful to them and improve my performance. Besides, if I bring a cat along, it won't be a problem. He thought Murakan would have to be his servant during his missions, but no, Jin had another mission for him, so until then, they all had to lie low. The next day, the cadet training also began. Zed was instructing everyone on the rules and regulations of the training. You will all receive special training in the secret courtyard, which only those with Runcandle blood are allowed to use. These are the privileges for you purebloods, Zed added. But don't expect the training to be easy, understand? The swordsmanship of the Runcandle clan focuses on power. It is destructive and decisive. Combat, conquest, and possession. The characteristics of the Runcandle house are all expressed in their swordsmanship. There is no specific definition for the swordsmanship, although there are a few characteristic and secret techniques that only candidates learn. This swordsmanship has no specific form, neither in footwork nor rules. This is the biggest difference between the Runcandle clan and other clans. Seeing the others daydreaming and not understanding, Zed asked if anyone knew why the clan's swordsmanship had no fixed form. Jin answered, it's because of the special physical abilities and talents possessed by the Runcandle clan. That's right, because being a Runcandle means you carry a noble bloodline. You possess a body and swordsmanship talent beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Even with a slight deviation, you are still far superior to ordinary people. After explaining, Zed looked at the students and smiled. He said he would now give each of them a steel ball, he added. This is a clear stone. It has this name because when you strike it, a clear sound will ring out. Now, I will let you hear the 3 types of sounds a clear stone can make. With that, Zed lightly touched his sword to the stone. An extremely unpleasant sound came from it, making everyone very uncomfortable. He then struck the stone again, but this time, the sound it made was much more pleasant, Zed explained. The clear stone produces different sounds depending on the force you use to strike it. If you don't strike hard enough, it will produce a very dull sound. And conversely, when you strike hard enough, the sound will be wonderful. Hearing this, Jin also understood. This means this training is for me to produce the right, beautiful sound every time I strike it. This also means training the ability to be controlled by mental power and focus. Considering the physical abilities of the Runcandle clan, this is the perfect exercise, even though it's quite simple. While Jin was thinking, Zed also struck the stone, and the final sound was produced. Jin wondered what that third sound was. He felt a crackling sound coming from within it, like steel fragments. And then finally, Jin also realized something special. He immediately pulled his 2 brothers down. At the same time, under Zed's sword strike. The clear stone also exploded with a loud bang. The whole area in the secret training ground was covered by the explosion and dust. The Tona brothers, thankfully, managed to take cover in time and were wondering what just happened. "Oh, the youngest seems to have good intuition," Zed's voice echoed from a distance. Then he added that once you strike a clear stone too hard, it will explode like it just did. "And now you know everything you need to know. Let's begin the training." But before that, Zed also added that after Luna, Jin was the first person not to be injured by that explosion. "Most of your siblings were taught by me. Drills like this are just a formality, so I don't expect much more from you after you escaped the explosion." Jin wondered how his sister Luna had dodged the explosion. Seeing this, Zed shook his head and said that the answer might disappoint Jin, because at that time, Luna didn't dodge it like you did, but was hit like all the other siblings. It's just that your sister wasn't injured because she was too strong. Hearing this, the three brothers were shocked. At the same time, Zed also spoke up and told the three of them that from now on, they had to practice with the pure stone every day, until you can master it to the point where you can always produce the second sound. Then you can stop. Cut to Luna's room. She was asking her nanny about the investigation into Jin's assassin. The nanny said that after investigating, she was suspected by Lady Mew and Lady Anne. Besides, they also knew young Master Jin very well, so the possibility was high. Hearing this, Luna said they acted a bit recklessly, but had no purpose after all. They were forbidden from participating in the war for the Rune Candle inheritance, and if Father finds out about their plan, this house will surely be turned upside down. The nanny asked Luna, "Have you ever thought that young Master Jin might be lying? Or what if it was just a misunderstanding? He was only 10 at the time, so it's entirely possible. Besides, we've been investigating this for 5 years and haven't found anything." Luna didn't think Jin had lied because he had been very wary of her before. That, of course, wasn't natural. It was possible Jin had sensed something. So the nanny would temporarily investigate Lady Anne and Lady Mew first, as Luna had a very bad feeling about this hearing her bad premonition. The nanny pouted and said that she was the one who needed to worry. She was afraid that she would be hurt by her siblings again. But Luna was long past the age of 13, so she told her not to worry too much. Then Luna changed the subject, wondering if Jin was doing well lately. "It's about time the boy showed me the results of his training. Jin will probably get a little hurt by the divine stone, but he'll likely be fine." The afternoon of the next day, a 4-hour afternoon training session. Jin was feeling that this training session was one of the worst he had ever experienced, and of course, his 2 older brothers were no exception. Luckily, Lord Zed gave the 3 brothers a 5-minute break. As he sat resting, Jin thought to himself that at first, he thought this training was related to strength and willpower, but that wasn't the truth. Because from the beginning, he had to focus on limiting his own light power to be able to destroy the pure stone. Now, Jin still lacked basic strength, so he needed to cultivate his light power to become even stronger. He needed to practice to be able to hear the pure sound clearly and destroy the pure stone. His older siblings had all done it, so there was no reason why he couldn't. His Uncle Zed, looking over at the 3 of them, assessed that these 3 nephews were all doing very well and were gradually improving. But the boy Jin was particularly special. He might break Luna's previous record. 2. To create of a seal and watch, controlled bound, as we come. A few hours later, the training was complete. His Uncle Zed gave Jin something and told him to remember to tell his 2 brothers that if they fainted again tomorrow, they didn't need to come. After the 3 of them left, Lord Zed thought to himself that the Tona twins had fainted later than he thought. After all, they were also part of this Runkandel family, and that youngest one. Thinking of this, he wanted to spit blood. Why was Jin the youngest? If he had been born about 10 years earlier, he could have become a talent who swallowed the entire clan. All the mistakes were because of that damn older brother. What a pity. A month later, on a day in May 1795, at the Intermediate Cadet Training Ground, all the cadets were gathered in the square. An announcer stated that the first mission of the year for the intermediate class had been issued. The cadets whose names were called stepped forward. This first mission was to protect the newcomers of the Minty Company. The chosen ones were the Houghtons Vading, After a while, it was the third mission, the ogre subjugation mission. The mission was in the unprotected territory of the Corano domain, and the chosen ones were— The announcer hesitated for a few moments before continuing, because among them were the names of the new cadets, Mesa, Bellop, Scut. In total, 10 cadets were named, and the mission was to eliminate 25 ogres. Ogres have a habit of moving in herds, making them very difficult to deal with, so you should be determined to carry out this mission. Ogres have a habit of moving in herds, making them very difficult to deal with, so you should be determined to carry out this mission. What can they do? Half of them are sure to die. Just prepare the coffins and incense. One was even more outrageous, saying that the whole group could now go beg young Master Jin for help, which made one person in the group furious. But Mesa held him back because they couldn't fight them yet. Besides, the mission was more important. The other guy, hearing this, still didn't listen. So Mesa loudly said, "This is the Runkandel clan, so we all have to accept the assigned mission and definitely return when we complete it. That's the only way we can defeat them." A few days later, the 3 Runkandel brothers were still in the process of training with the pure stone. Haytona accidentally used too much force and made his pure stone explode. Its fragments flew past Haytona. But unfortunately for Jin, he was standing right next to it and didn't have time to defend himself, so a fragment pierced him directly. Seeing this, Haytona quickly asked if Jin was okay, as he really didn't mean to do it. Jin was fine, and asked him to take the stone somewhere else. It had now been a month since they started training with the pure stone. The Tona brothers could now blow it away faster than Jin had thought. Then Jin thought about the feeling he just had. It's like a steel bullet being drawn, and he thought to himself, now if that steel stone flies over here again, I can easily dodge it. And could this feeling be thanks to Sister Luna's previous training? With that thought, Jin decided to try again before he forgot that feeling. At the same time, Lord Zed entered and announced that all 3 of them had been assigned a mission to attend an event of the Bement Empire. Hearing this, the Tona brothers grimaced because these events were super boring. Not only that, but the clothes were also weird. Seeing this, Zed also felt sorry for his nephews. Thanks to them, their other siblings didn't have to dance in the Imperial Banquet Hall. But in any case, this was a mission, and anyone who dared to complain would face this uncle's wrath. Jin could tell at a glance that this event mission was a punishment from his sisters Mew and Anne for the Tona brothers, because this was a major event that the Runkandel family couldn't refuse. Besides, many powerful people would be there for entertainment, so this was also a learning opportunity. After assigning the mission to the Tona brothers, Lord Zed turned to Jin to give him his mission, and Jin's mission was to assassinate a key figure. The target was a plaything of the master of the ice castle, Talaris, one of that woman's lovers. The ice castle is a giant tower that rises from the sea west of the continent. The 51st master of the ice castle is Talaris, nicknamed the Abyssal Spider Demon. She is famous for cruelly torturing people, touching his lover. The ice castle is an independent force outside the control of the Runkandel or Zippel clans. And of course, its master is not a weak person. With that, Zed gave Jin the information on the target. The target is Alcaro Chenderer, a member of the Ice Castle, and he is currently in the lawless region of Mamit. The 3 brothers' jaws dropped when they heard Mamit, because a mission related to Mamit was on the level of a guardian knight. Although Jin was truly talented, this was a bit much. Jin posed a question. The ones who issued this mission are the Chenderer family. So aren't they trying to kill their own kin? That's right, it seems the Chenderer family has tried everything to bring him back, but they have all failed. So now, they probably plan to kill him rather than let him reveal family secrets. Zed further asked if Jin was confident in carrying out this mission. And of course, Jin would do it. Seeing this, Zed wondered why his youngest nephew was so brave. Does he not know about the Ice Castle and Mamit? How could he agree so readily? He even thought he would assign this mission to a candidate if he resisted. Well, being decisive is good. The 3 of you will depart in 2 days. Zed instructed that the afternoon training session would be cancelled until the mission was over. As for individual training, it would be limited so as not to interfere with the mission. As they were preparing to leave, the Tona brothers turned to Jin and hesitantly said, "If you're really in danger, just say you're a member of the Runkandel family. Surely no one would dare to touch you. Seeing this, Jin's face contorted in disbelief. He never expected these two older brothers to feign concern for him in such ways. Then Jin turned to leave, not forgetting to say a few words to them. Until I return, I hope you decide whether to side with our sisters or with me. Lord Zed also added to the Daytona and Haytona brothers. You should stop provoking the youngest before you're strong enough if you truly want to live long. 2 days later, everyone from Jin's team came to see him off. Everyone wondered why the young master's hair color had changed. They learned that Jin would be disguising himself to avoid being identified as a run candle. Jin's mission and theirs were different, so the two groups would go to different transfer gates. Then Jin wondered why everyone looked so gloomy. Is something wrong? Then Mesa said there was nothing wrong. They just wanted to bid the young master farewell, because they were all afraid this would be their last mission. Well, if we're unlucky, some of us might die. But worrying won't change anything, so just focus on the task at hand. Jean instructed the group, and I will definitely return, so don't worry too much. And you must also stay safe. Then, Jin instructed one person to protect all of them. That person was none other than Murakan, in the form of a black cat. Gilly bid Jin farewell and thought, both the young master and Lord Murakan are leaving, so it will probably be very quiet. And she was also very worried about the young master's mission. Assassinating the lover of the master of the ice castle is not simple. So, young master, please be careful on your journey. I will definitely return. Jin mounted his horse and began his mission. The lawless region of Mamit, a gathering place for the lowest of criminals, a sanctuary for undisciplined criminals. It is rumored that due to the influence of so many of these depraved people, even grass cannot grow. As soon as Jin set foot in this lawless land, he was greeted by the gazes of criminals. They wondered where this newcomer came from. At the same time, Jin also handed over money and ordered food from the innkeeper. A man, seeing this newcomer's bold words, was about to ask Jin whose family he was from. Seeing that Jin refused to answer, he felt his face was being slapped, so he demanded that he learn the rules of this place first. It's best to be quiet and kneel down right now. After that, I will spare you. And so, a pool of blood dripped onto the table before his words. After dealing with the other guy, Jin stood up and called out to the innkeeper, "Why is the food taking so long? How long do you want me to wait?" The other gangsters, seeing Jin act like this, were a bit surprised. But then things returned to normal because killing people here was as common as eating a meal. Jin thought to himself, it's just as Master said. This place is full of certified lunatics. To be accepted by these people, I have to show them my skills and courage. With that thought, Jin remembered his master and hoped that one day he could repay him. Just then, the innkeeper brought the food. He said he hadn't poisoned it, so he could eat freely. And of course, Jin knew that poison was forbidden here. Hearing that, he was surprised to see such a young person know the rules of this place so well. You there, do you live here? Seeing Jin didn't answer, he asked what he was here for. Do you need to buy something, or are you looking for someone? Jin asked if he knew anyone named Hister here. I'm sure I don't, he answered very quickly, showing that his master was not in this place. Can you suggest a few places to spend the night? Places that aren't crawling with bugs? Hearing this, the innkeeper recommended an inn called Moonwell in the western part of the city. That's where the king of Mamit stays. As he went there, Jin thought about Alcaro, the trash son of a count. He grew up in a glass cage, not knowing what hardship was. Therefore, he was a maniac who specialized in trampling the weak and bowing to the strong. He had nothing but his bloodline and his face. The reason he was here was to attract the attention of the mysterious castle's master. Jin remembered the innkeeper mentioning a new type of opium earlier. He must be doing drugs in his room right now. And since he was one of the lovers, he surely had guards outside. So Jin wanted to grasp the situation in the room first, before taking action. As soon as he entered the room, Jin saw the man cursing his servant about getting opium. What a lucky day, who would have thought Jin could meet him right away. Nearby, the other guy was still stubbornly demanding opium even though his two guards disagreed. They only had the duty to protect him, not to always indulge the whims of this pampered young master. Seeing him continuously shouting and cursing, the two guards looked at each other and knew what to do. And so, The lover was knocked unconscious with one punch. The two guards still didn't understand why their master kept this lowly thing alive. Then the other two also carried him back to his room. Jin watched them and guessed that his guards were at least 6-star. So he needed to trick him safely and then escape from the guards. Using poison in Mammoth was taboo, so that method was not feasible. So Jin was racking his brain to think of a way to kill Alcaro right here at the moon well. After some thought, he came to a conclusion. Jin decided to use that method to deal with him. As for what method, you'll see in a bit. The next morning, a group of people were walking on the road. "How many guards does that guy have?" "6, my lady," a guard said. "I apologize to everyone because that bastard doesn't know his place, causing you all trouble. But from today, that will end, because I have come here myself." The group headed straight for the moonwell, where Alcaro was. Just then, thunderclouds gathered in the sky, and lightning flashed. A bolt of lightning struck the road right in front of them. The people looked up and saw that it was the direction of the moonwell, so they were very worried. Back a few minutes earlier, on Jin's side, his plan was to terrorize the moonwell with magic. Currently, he was at the 4th star, so with a little more shadow power, he could reach the 6th star. Currently, he was at the 4th star, so with a little more shadow power, he could reach the 6th star. Surely no one, not even Veridine Zippel, who just reached the 6th star as a maid. With that, Jin immediately cast the spell to make it look like an attack from the outside. Summoning lightning was the most suitable spell. And so, after a moment of casting, lightning was summoned from Jin's magic combined with the power of shadow. And so, we have the scene of the summoned lightning from before. This is Ceres Endorma, the captain of the Seven Swords Secret Palace, and the daughter of the Secret Palace's master, who was leading her guards in search of Alcaro. Everyone, seeing the lightning, guessed that someone in the moonwell must have angered a high-level mage. But it could also be an attack aimed at the Secret Palace, the guard next to Ceres said. They suddenly remembered there were still 6 of their people inside. Not to mention, their mother's lover, Alcaro, was also there. And so, the whole group rushed towards the moonwell. On the moonwell's side, the lightning created by Jin was still continuously striking a wide area. The people below were constantly blaming each other, wondering which one of them had angered a Zippel mage earlier. Just then, the people from the Secret Palace also arrived. Just in time, the final lightning strike came down, almost sending the whole group to meet their ancestors. They, seeing that super powerful attack, thought it was probably the last one and hoped that everyone was still safe. In the moonwell, Jin almost died from his own attack just now. That final attack had mixed in all of his spiritual power, so it was close to 7-star magic. Luckily, he had the pendant, so he managed to keep this life. He looked nearby, and it seemed all the Secret Palace guards were still alive, but he didn't see Alcaro anywhere. If he was still alive now, it would be a good opportunity for him. Suddenly, Ceres appeared before Jin and wondered how there could be someone her age in Mamit. "Were you injured in the attack just now?" She looked at Jin and asked, then told him to leave this place quickly. At the same time, she also told her guards to deal with Alcaro immediately if they found him, and to tie up any mage they found. Jin looked at this girl. Wasn't she the daughter of the Secret Palace master? Hearing their conversation just now, they were here to give Alcaro special care. If so, his death has been arranged, so I don't need to check the situation anymore. The problem now was just that it would be troublesome later if she remembered his face, so it was best to disguise himself as much as possible and escape. A soldier then came to report that they had found Alcaro dead in the recent attack. Hearing this, Ceres thought this was good news, as she had come here to free them from this mission. With that, she pointed her sword to the sky and said that for the time being, the Secret Palace would be commandeering the inn here. Anyone who objected would be considered an enemy of the Secret Palace. An old man pointed at her and said, "Even if you are the daughter of the Secret Master, this place is Mamit. No one has the right to overrule the kings of this city to take control of the current situation. Besides, the reason for the attack might also be because of the Secret Palace. So, that guy was sent on his way by Ceres. As she had said before, those who objected would be enemies of the Secret Palace. As for those kings, they were just playing the role of emperors in their own densa. If the target is truly the Secret Palace, I will compensate you appropriately. But if, on the other hand, The secret palace is not involved because of you. What will you do? Hearing her say that, the men turned pale with fear. She finished with a final statement. The secret palace, commandeering this inn, is only fair. But in any case, the task at hand is to find the mage who caused this. I guess one of you here must have provoked a mage while messing around somewhere. So stop resisting right now. And you there, why are you still dawdling here after what I said? I was just a little scared and my leg is also injured, Jin stammered in reply. Ceres took out a vial of medicine and applied it to Jin's wound, not knowing he was the mastermind. She smiled and told Jin he didn't need to thank her, because how could he repay the great Ceres? Just consider this a beautiful memory. With that, she turned to bid farewell to the cute swordsman. Jin also bid her farewell, but no one knew that inside, he was secretly celebrating because the mission was also complete. Cut to the ogre-slaying group. After a few days of killing, they had taken down a total of 18 of them. They were all secretly celebrating, thinking they might all survive and return. Then they could trample on the honor of those bastards who dared to laugh at them. Nearby, Mesa told the two not to be complacent because there were still 7 more monsters. With that, Mesa thought that normally, ogres would move in herds. But now they were wandering alone, making them quite easy to kill. Could it be that the gods were on their side? Or maybe young Master Jin has the protection of a god, and that positive energy has spread to everyone. Little did she know, the god she was thinking of was that black cat. Nearby, Murakan was sulking. Hope those cadets would quickly catch the remaining ogres so he could get home to taste his strawberry tarts. To explain why the ogres were wandering alone, a few days ago at the ogre's den, Murakan appeared and ordered them all to always move alone from now on. If any of you in this bunch don't listen or gather in groups of 2 or more, I'll send you all on your way. If you understand, then get going. Back to the present, Murakan was still grumbling about how that Jin kid always gave him troublesome tasks. So what if it's a fake contract? What a tiring setter of the universe. Murakan, standing nearby and observing the group, thought to himself, when I get back, I have to make that Jin kid buy me some new manga. Suddenly, he sensed a strong energy approaching. It was heading straight for this place. So, Murakan decided to release his own energy to counter it. Luckily, those kids are only at the 3rd star, so they won't sense my energy. If it were Jin, he would surely know. And then a protective shield of shadow enveloped the area around everyone. Bellup, seeing the sky getting darker, thought it was about to rain. Outside, the other guy was still approaching when Murakan transformed into a dragon to greet him. How dare you mobilize your forces without my permission? This is not a living creature, but an ancient relic. The giant gravekeeper. I'm sure my dragon kind wiped them out 2,000 years ago. Besides, why are the giant gravekeepers of dead gods here? In any case, this reunion isn't a happy one, so I'll end it in one breath. After that, Murakan spat phlegm at the statues, and under the moonlight, the statues vanished without a trace. Murakan transformed back into his human form and assessed, why is it here? There's no way a giant gravekeeper would appear randomly. Perhaps this is related to the Zippel clan. It's best to keep this a secret from the kid. If something unexpected happens, I can protect him and let him grow. As he is now, in 10 years, he can definitely stand against the Zippel clan. In another place, the transformation wizard Bubare was reporting to his superior, Lord Bishkel, that his masterpiece, the giant gravekeeper, had been destroyed. He racked his brain but couldn't figure out who could possibly defeat his masterpiece. Bishkel approached and explained to him that after he inspected the scene, the one who defeated it was a shadow dragon. Hearing this, Buba was worried because the dragons might now be aware of their actions. In any case, nothing was certain, so for now Bishkel requested that everyone act careful, and we will be holding a meeting with the Zippel family soon. A few days later, at the Intermediate Cadet Training Ground, Lord Zed was welcoming everyone back from their mission. He chuckled and said that the candidates who assigned this mission to them would be embarrassed and furious about this. Jin and the others turned to praise each other, because they had all returned safely. The longtime cadets were gossiping about how Jin had completed the mission because a high-level mage had intervened at the right time. Why is young Master Jin so lucky? This world is so unfair. Not only is he a Runkandel, but he also has heaven-defying luck. Little did these guys know, He worked for everything himself. Then the long-haired one added, young Master Jin is one thing, but his group of newcomers are all 3-star. Are we just going to let that slide, Kajin? Kajin could only shake her head in resignation. Even if Jin is a looked-down-upon youngest son, he is still a pure-blooded run candle. Until Lady Mew and Lady Anne give the order, they cannot act. As they were talking, Jin stood right next to them, making them think he had overheard everything. That was right. Jean had heard every word they said. Kajin Romero, is your right hand all right? It's fine. The nurses said reattaching it wasn't difficult, and it was also thanks to your clean cut. After teasing Kajin, he turned to ask, you guys seem to be having an interesting discussion. Kajin replied insolently. The only thing we can do is talk bad about you behind your back. I hope you'll forgive us. Well, whether I forgive you or not doesn't matter, since I'm not a candidate yet. Kajin asked, couldn't you, young master, with just one word, drag us all out for a fight? Why don't you do that? In his eyes, the fact that young Master Jin completed the mission just by luck was not amusing at all. Jin drew his sword and demanded a duel with Kajin because, as a 5-star knight, he was stronger than most other intermediate cadets. Speaking ill of him behind his back was unacceptable. Instead, challenge me like a warrior. Besides, you don't need to hold back when fighting me. The main point was that Kajin didn't need to set a limit on his aura. You will definitely regret this, Kajin replied. Then he drew his sword and charged at Jin. Jin saw that Kajin's attacks were very strong, but compared to the people he would fight in the future, they were nothing. Have you seen the truth, young master? You are still too weak compared to me. Kajin shouted and swung his sword. Jin had to struggle to block his sword, and then he realized that he seemed to see his movements clearly. Just like the time he was hit by Haytona's iron ball, he was starting to see the trajectory of Kajin's attacks. Although the number of sword techniques he could use to cut through space was countless, with his 5-star strength, he couldn't use many, especially when he was blinded by anger like now. With that thought, Jin was determined to end this battle in just 3 moves. The first was a slash from the left, then a surprise head-on strike, and the final attack. Something a 4-star aura user couldn't dream of blocking. Kajin's sword had been knocked out of his hand. He was still in shock at how this could have happened. Jin already knew how many years he needed to reach the 5-star level. Kajin said, "Did you trick me? That last attack had the aura of a 5-star knight." Of course, Jin had never tricked anyone before. It was just that Kajin didn't understand him enough. Because Jin would never enter a battle he wasn't sure of winning. At the same time, the Tona brothers also ran over with panicked expressions. They were stunned and didn't understand what was happening, seeing Kajin defeated at the hands of their youngest brother. Jin just glanced past them and sneered, "Your subordinates are not much to speak of." A moment later, in Miyu and Anne's room, could what he said be true, or did you hold back against the youngest because he's a runkanda? There's no way a 15-year-old could reach the 5th star. But Kajin frankly replied that it wasn't just him who saw it. Everyone there had witnessed the aura from young Master Jin, and it was above the 5-star level. Forget it. It was our mistake to rely on someone like you, Mayu said and told Kajin to get out. Mew asked Anne, could it be that the youngest is threatening us? Actually, it's not just us. He's threatening the entire clan, Anne replied. In his next mission, we have to mix our people and it must be a place where he goes, and when he returns, he'll just be a corpse. In Jin's room, the nanny Gilly was recounting the situation in the Garden of Swords, which was very lively. Everyone was amazed by his achievement, because only the first patriarch, his father, and his sister Luna, those 3 had become 5-star knights at the age of 15 in the entire history of the Runkandel clan. So now Jin had reached 5-star swordsmanship, 4-star magic, and 5-star shadow energy. Truthfully, Jin also didn't expect to reach 5-star swordsmanship just by practicing with a normal pure stone. It seemed that as long as one of the 3 powers he possessed became stronger, the others would also be affected. Previously, when Jin overloaded his shadow energy, he also opened a flow of aura and mana. Anyway, when the news of Jin becoming a 5-star knight gets out, his siblings will become restless, including his brother Joshua, who was proposed to be the next patriarch. When Luna Runkandel gave up her right of inheritance, the second candidate of the Runkandel family, naturally became the top candidate for the position of patriarch, along with the support of his mother, Rosa Runkandel. Although marking his skills now wasn't a bad idea, Jin chose to reveal his achievement because it would be more beneficial. With the 5-star news out, it would spread even outside Runkandel. Then his story would be published in newspapers all over the world. Moroccan watched Jin's self-praise with a very sarcastic look. Jin believed that when he became the center of attention, Joshua would be more obedient. More importantly, his father would also come to the Garden of Swords himself, because his father had always wanted a different heir instead of Joshua. He had once told him that besides his sister Luna, he had never been satisfied with any other sibling. But his sister Luna, the only one who interested him, was not interested in the position of patriarch. So he decided that Luna was not suitable to lead the clan. After that, Joshua's position as the next patriarch was confirmed. Have highly Dyphus, Runtia, and Mari became the backup heirs. Although this order of inheritance was extremely stable, everything had changed since Jin appeared. His father would not discriminate based on age, and everyone would have a chance. Jin was quite sure his father would give him a command, and that command would consist of 2 things. The first was a challenge to see if he could overcome the age gap with his siblings and become a candidate. The second would be protection, because he certainly didn't want Jin to die before taking the test. All because Jin was a special case. Just then, Gilly said, "When your story appears in the newspapers, a series of clans will want you to visit them. And to deal with those things, there's nothing better than a banquet." Jin replied, "When father arrives, there will be a banquet, so please prepare Gilly. Furthermore, you must keep a special watch on Murakan, because if he secretly transforms into a human and sneaks in, we're done for." A few days later, Gilly informed Jin of Patriarch Chiron's schedule. He would arrive in a month. Besides, the visiting days for other clans had also been scheduled appropriately. But the other young masters and ladies were quite quiet. Jin said that if they wanted to correct him while he was in the spotlight like this, it would be no different from them boasting that they were afraid or hated him. Just then, the butler rushed in to announce that the young master had been assigned a new mission, with a panicked expression, because that mission was the Cologne ruins. In another place, many of Jin's siblings had been summoned to be scolded by Lady Rosa for daring to send the youngest to Zippel's territory. This is June Runkandel, the 3rd candidate of the Runkandel family. The white-haired one is Ran Runkandel, the 5th candidate, and Vigo Runkandel, the 6th candidate. Just then, Jin was also summoned here. As soon as he entered, he was asked by Rosa if he had heard about his mission to the Cologne ruins. She announced that this mission would be cancelled because he would not be able to go to Cologne. Mew and Anne, hearing this, strongly objected, but Rosa told them both to shut up. "You bastards are only thinking of ways to kill the youngest," Anne retorted. "Is it strange that we're trying to kill him?" "That's right. Honestly, I don't understand why you're trying to protect him anymore," Mayo added. One of the children spoke up. "Didn't both father and mother encourage us to fight among ourselves? Isn't it because our family needs competition? I'm sure you know that every child here has been competing since they were young." Rosa nodded and said, "You are right. Competition is necessary, regardless of the method or hidden meaning. But has anyone among you become a 5-star knight at the age of 15? The youngest is different from you. If you had achieved what he has at his age, I would protect you too. In other words, you are not worthy of my protection. And Runtia, Ran, and Vigo must also share the punishment with these two, because you are also candidates. Runtia will be disciplined right now. As for Ran and Vigo, they would have to return a high-end sword of the clan that they possessed. Although Ran and Vigo objected to this punishment, they couldn't change their mother's decision. Rosa looked at Jin and thought to herself, "Now what will you do, youngest? In this situation, where I'm dragging your unrelated siblings into this, will you pretend and say I'm punishing them? Or will you be content with this favoritism and become arrogant? Show me how you handle this." Just then, Jin spoke up and said he really liked the mission his sisters had assigned. Despite Rosa's warnings about how dangerous the Cologne ruins were, Jin knew it was a part of Zippel territory that Runkandel had once tried to conquer but failed, and now it was a very dangerous place. But he had no intention of backing down in this fight. "I really like this big mission my sisters have arranged for me," Jin said to his mother. Even though I know it's very dangerous, I don't think there's any injustice. On the contrary, it seems like a signal that my sisters highly value my abilities. Isn't that the reason they sent me on this mission? Very brave, or are you suspecting your own mother? Rosa asked. Of course not. If the mission arrangements were to change suddenly, it would make the people working for the Runkendel clan think that our clan's level and power are declining. Jin answered his mother. Lady Rosa said that no subordinate would dare to suspect the Runkendel clan over such a small matter. This is just your two sisters trying to harm you when they don't have the right to fight you directly. But this was also the purpose Jin was aiming for. Because if he had to fight his sisters now, he would surely lose. But he could fight back by completing the mission excellently. This is the battle I'm aiming for. Rosa gently reminded him one last time that just one misstep in Cologne could cost Jin his life. Jin, of course, was still willing to accept that mission, but had a small request. If he succeeded in this mission, he wanted to be granted the sword his brothers had returned. Hearing that, Ran wondered, "Why do you want to keep the sword we returned, Jin? If you need a sword that badly, we'll give you one. So just give up this mission. You need to survive at least until father returns." Jin asked back. If you felt there was a problem, shouldn't someone have stopped Anne and Mew from the beginning? Rosa told everyone to stop and promised to give Jin his brother's sword if he returned from the mission successfully. Now you can all leave. Despite Ron and Vigo still objecting, because I was afraid Jin would become like Luna, I have trampled on the honor of my other children. But perhaps I have worried for nothing. When Chiron returns, he will be very proud of Jin's growth. Seeing Jin about to leave, Mayu quickly asked, "What are you thinking? Dreaming that luck is still on your side?" This is not a personal mission, so you will never be alone during the entire journey down to downstream. Jin ignored his sister's words and continued to walk out. A few days later, Jin greeted those who would be accompanying him on the mission. These were all Mew and Anne's lackeys, including Kajin. On the outside, they were smiling and greeting him, but who didn't know that on the inside, they would take any opportunity to stab Jin in the back. Regarding this mission, the Cologne ruins is a place where thousands of indigenous people live in tribes currently. That territory is under the control of the Zippel clan, which is under the kingdom of Phelan. Cologne was developed a few hundred years ago by the members of the Zippel family after discovering the ruins. They had killed and enslaved most of the indigenous people. And of course, the Zippel clan currently claims to respect the indigenous people of Cologne. But that action is only to save face. On the outside, they are respected, but on the inside, they are just slaves. There are no policies to improve their situation because their lives mean nothing to most of humanity. The only reason Zippel spared them was to maintain nature and the charade of repentance for their past cruelty. The Zippel clan usually aims for reasonable laws, seeking voluntary submission from the people they rule. But in the past, they crossed the line with Cologne. The reason they were obsessed with the Cologne ruins to the point of sacrificing their own reputation was because of the mirror relic hidden by the indigenous people. The existence of the mirror is still a secret that only the Zippel clan knows, but the truth was revealed before Jin's regression, thanks to a brave journalist. The content of that headline talked about Zippel searching for a certain relic, and the name of the relic obtained from the indigenous people is called the source of mana. Just by looking at it, a person can increase their mana to the 7th star. With that item, Zippel had created countless mass-produced mages. As Jin knew in his previous life, Zippel would begin creating magic swordsmen in another 10 years. This meant they still didn't have the source of mana, so this time he was determined to snatch it from Zippel's hands. A few days later, the whole group was planning to get the treasure. According to what they knew, it was stored in warehouse number 3. Although it wasn't difficult to raid, there would surely be a defensive spell there. Jin turned to the 3 and said they needed to conserve their energy to return safely, so everyone would rest. And now, each of them would take a portion. And so, just as planned, the other 3 fell asleep, because their food had been drugged. Jin didn't want to be hindered or stabbed in the back while on a mission, because the instinct of hounds is to obey their masters, isn't it? A moment later, at the warehouse, 2 guards were dozing off and chatting. Suddenly, they detected an attacker. It was Jin. He easily took down these two guards and began to investigate. As Jin saw, there were only these two guards outside. Furthermore, the lock was also very simple, with no trace of magic. This warehouse number 3 was sometimes guarded by ordinary people sent by Zippel, so it seemed they didn't value it much. Jin opened the door and entered, seeing a magic circle on the floor. This was a blood magic probing circle. It was known to most as a guardian magic that confirmed whether the person entering had the same bloodline, but in reality, its function was to distinguish between humans and magical beasts, or if they have any diseases. Just a drop of a normal person's blood is enough, whose blood doesn't matter. Jin used the blood of the guard from earlier for convenience, so he wouldn't have to leave any evidence behind. After Jin spread the other's blood on the magic circle, it activated. He was sure the blood of an unconscious normal soldier would be safe, but now the blood magic circle was still being activated. That meant the other guy either had some kind of disease or he wasn't human. As he thought, the two guards also transformed into monsters and advanced towards Jin. He could only temporarily retreat and use wind silence to hold them back. Once he used magic, if there were any mages nearby, they would sense it. But now things were different. It seemed Jin couldn't avoid a fight. With that, Jin stabbed the golem in the stomach with his sword, making it scream in pain and push him away. Then Jin activated his aura, making the other two retreat in fear. It seemed they also knew that aura power was something very dangerous. Jin saw that the wounds he had inflicted earlier were healing very quickly. This recovery speed was only found in high-level magical beasts. However, these two were still human before. This is the territory of the Zippel clan. Countless mages have immigrated here. The indigenous people are oppressed, and those mysterious monsters are likely primordial golems. Jin thought to himself. Creating primordial golems was a grave crime. Perhaps the Zippel clan was using this place as a laboratory, specializing in forbidden magic. These primordial golems possess strength nearly equal to a 4-star knight, but only in terms of strength. Their movements were not refined, so fighting them was quite easy. Usually, even if these golems were injured, they would still attack their target. But just destroying their core was enough. It was either the head, heart, or stomach, one of these 3 places. Jin quickly rushed to attack the first point, its head. Despite that, its strength and speed did not decrease at all, but even increased. Then Jin continued to attack the abdomen, but it still wasn't it. So there was only one place left. He swung his sword, splitting the golem in 2. A standard morph, and its core fell out, which he quickly destroyed. The other one also quickly charged at Jin, but he easily blocked its claws and continued with a strike through the heart. This was also its core, so it was quickly destroyed. The other golem, after its core was destroyed, regained a little of its human consciousness and begged Jin to finish it off. And so he had to grant its wish. He didn't know what had happened, but he was sure that no one in this world would voluntarily become a primordial golem. Especially because once transformed, one becomes a pawn with no future ahead. Jin had discovered the horrifying truths of the Zippel clan. However, he knew now was not the time to be angry. This unexpected, horrifying event made the face of the Zippel clan even clearer. Jin also suspected that his sister had known about this before assigning him the mission. Even if he spread this news, the Zippel clan would just deny it. However, creating primordial golems was a high-level crime. Even just a suspicion would lead to an investigation by the Empire. Therefore, Jin first wanted to obtain evidence and then continue the mission, regardless of knowing that Zippel might interfere with the investigation using their power. For now, the mages hadn't taken any action, which meant they only thought this was a normal warehouse. If they knew this place had primordial golems, they wouldn't have guarded it so loosely. This further convinced Jin that not everyone in Cologne was involved in forbidden magic. Then Jin entered and saw a stone slab with a simple protective spell. But nearby the bowl was quite complex. Breaking a protective spell usually takes a lot of effort, but with the death of the 2 golems, he believed Zippel would just cover up all the tracks here. With that, Jin unleashed his fire. He would use a little heat to burn this place down. And shadow powers. At the Runcandle family mansion, Mew and Anne were facing Luna's wrath. Luna didn't understand why these two would send their younger brother, who was 10 years younger, to Zippel's territory. Mew and Anne objected, saying that fighting was normal in the family. But Luna retorted immediately, "You two are already candidates. Why are you competing with a younger brother who has just entered the intermediate class? Candidates must fight candidates. That is the unwritten rule, and your actions have crossed the line. You should be ashamed of yourselves, because I am very ashamed that you are the candidates of this clan," Luna said. Hearing this, Miu objected. "Why are you, who have never been interested in power, acting like this?" "That's because you can't defeat Jin. Jin has just completed his mission at the Cologne ruins, so Mother will receive the report immediately. Now do you understand why I said I was very ashamed? In the end, you only helped the boy. Besides, from what I've seen, Jin is not very noble, so from now on, you two should be careful," Luna warned one last time. "Because you are also my siblings, I am reminding you." Back in her room, the nanny also found it hard to believe that Luna had just punished her younger sisters. It was as if Lady Luna had returned to her rebellious teenage years. Besides, she was also worried for the young ladies like Luna, because Jin wouldn't let this go easily. She believed that in 5 years, Lady Miu and Lady Anne would no longer be a match for young Master Jin. Luna asked the nanny about the favor she had asked for earlier, and was told that it seemed the assassination was not related to Anne and Miu, the Tona twins. Jonah or Mari were also not involved, which meant the culprit was now one of only 5 people: Joshua, Dyphus, Ron, Vigo, or Runtia. Among them, besides Ron and Vigo, the other 3 were very difficult to investigate because their foundations were solid. So for now, it was best to just watch from the sidelines. The nanny also agreed because in the end, young Master Jin was still growing up strong and healthy. In Jin's room, he had also just returned. Jilly was also very moved to see her young master return safely. If something really happened to young Master Jin, I would definitely sacrifice myself for revenge. Someone hearing this panicked. "If you sacrifice yourself, who will make the tarts?" Then Murakan approached and asked Jin, "Did you make a proper report this time? Because last time, everyone thought you completed the mission through luck." This wasn't important to Jin. Besides, he had something to show the two of them. He brought out a specimen, the heart of a primordial golem. Seeing this, Murakan was surprised. First, it was the corpse of a giant gatekeeper, and now, a primordial golem. What is that Zippel clan really trying to do? With that thought, Murakan requested that Jin spend some time with him to go there again. He needed to interrogate them about these things himself. Jin was a little worried about going back there, but if Murakan went with him, it would surely be safer. If they were lucky, they might even find the source of mana. So, Jin decided to spend time going with Murakan. As for the 3 who went with Jin, right after the mission was completed, Kajin and the Tona brothers also returned to the Runkandel clan. But Mayu and Anne had stripped them of their cadet titles and exiled them from the clan. This was a very harsh punishment for cadets, but no one sympathized with them. In June 1795, Zed told Jin that from now on, he didn't need to train with the pure stone anymore. From tomorrow, only the Tona twins would come, which made the 2 brothers jealous when they heard it. Furthermore, it seemed the morning training session for the cadets was no longer necessary. "Next week, the patriarch will have something to say to you," Zed added. Hearing this, the Tona brothers' eyes widened because it was very likely their father would make Jin a temporary candidate. Then Jin would have to leave the clan to gather honor and become a true candidate. Finally, this day had come. This was what Jin had wanted for a long time. No one's attention, and he could get stronger in the way he wanted. Cut to Chiron's legion marching back. Khan announced that it was only a 2-hour journey back to the Garden of Swords. Meanwhile, Chiron was having a headache about his youngest son. He had planned to go into seclusion in the Black Sea for 10 years. But now what? Khan added that when he was at the Storm Castle, he had seen that young Master Jin was a very special person, but he never expected it to be to this extent. "The things he has done in the Garden of Swords have left me completely shocked." Chiron remembered that from the first time he met Jin. His eyes had always been burning with hatred, even though he tried to hide it. And he could never forget the way Jin provoked his siblings on his first day at the Garden of Swords. With Jin being the youngest, the others had tried to suppress him. But look at the results now. He had already reached the 5th star. Khan said that actually, it wasn't the Mammoth and Cologne ruins missions, but the first mission when he fought the White Wolf clansman that impressed him the most. No one at that age could defeat a White Wolf clansman. Chiron was the same. He thought Jin would use his men as meat shields, but he had proven his promise and defeated that White Wolf by himself. Although Jin didn't completely defeat him alone, he is still an interesting child. I am very eager to meet him this time, Chiron said. 2 hours later, Chiron and his legion also returned to the Garden of Swords. Rosa and her children also came to formally greet the patriarch. Of course, there was also Joshua, the future patriarch, but it seemed he didn't see eye to eye with Chiron. Chiron walked past Jin and saw the 2 special swords on him. He asked Ran and Vigo why they were carrying the sword he had given to the youngest. Ran explained that the sword had been taken by Jin, not given. Hearing about the bet, Chiron laughed loudly and placed his hand on Ran, saying, "You should also find a way to take it back." That evening, before the banquet began, Jin and his father were talking. This was the first time Jin had attended a banquet in this life. In his previous life, thanks to his master, he had participated in a few small banquets. As for a banquet hosted by his own clan, he had never participated, but now he had become a guest of honor next to his father. Chiron asked, "Do you know our family only holds banquets on truly celebratory occasions? This means your achievement this time is very noteworthy. At this banquet, there will be 1,000 guests attending compared to 800 guests at the banquet 7 years ago." This showed that in the past 7 years, the prestige of the Runkendel clan had been increasing. Although other family balls also had many guests, or even more, the people who came here today were all elites. Even though Chiron had only been training and killing monsters in the Black Sea for the past 7 years, the clan's prestige continued to rise. That was because he was the only Genesis knight of this era. This meant that if he were to die, most of the people here would turn their backs on Runkendel. Jin also thought so. If his father wasn't here, how could the Runkendel family have such prestige? Originally, Zippel and Runkendel were the 2 largest clans, but when his father disappeared, the gap would widen, and the Zippel family would become the strongest force. Then Chiron turned to ask Jin, "What would you do if those people turned their backs on us?" Jin frankly said, "I would abandon this clan." Chiron was surprised to hear that. Jin explained, "Because I don't want to die a meaningless death here. Because if the Runkendel clan falls, the next patriarch will be someone incompetent." Jin further asked, "How many weaknesses of those people below does our clan hold?" He knew about them because he had asked Vigo to see the candidate's secret documents when he returned the sword. And almost every clan that came here was in the Runkendel family's grasp. Of course, Jin knew his parents had things that even the candidates didn't know about. He believed that with the future patriarch not being a Genesis knight like his father, the priority was to use these things to control the other clans. Although the Zippel family was similar, only this Runkendel clan was suitable to play the villain. Therefore, if the next patriarch held so many weapons but couldn't use them properly, then I will definitely abandon this clan without hesitation, and then find a way to take revenge on the Zippel family, no matter how long it takes. After hearing Jin's explanation, Chiron stroked his chin in satisfaction. With the other children never having spoken like that in front of him, the fact that the youngest dared to state his intentions so intelligently was very commendable. Jin seemed to have everything of this clan, from Luna's talent, Mari's beastly intuition, or Diffus's fighting spirit. He believed he could hold the position of patriarch for another 10 or 15 years. By then, he could see if the youngest could change the clan's inheritance. With that thought, Chiron told Jin to go down, as it seemed the guests had all arrived. Just then, a servant from outside rushed in to announce the arrival of uninvited guests. For the Runkendel clan, uninvited guests could only be them, the people of the Zippel clan. They had come, 5 of them in total. Among them was the second in command of the Zippel clan, Andreu, and 4 clan members. Chiron ordered the servant to go and stop them directly. Seeing his father confront the person in power of the Zippel family so directly made Jin cough a few times. Chiron turned to ask Jin, "Do you think I handled that too harshly?" "No, I think that was a very refreshing way to handle it," Jin replied. Since he ignored the permission of the Runkendel patriarch, That's unacceptable in this garden of swords. That's right. Now this Andreu guy has to listen to Chiron or he'll leave his legs behind before he can go back. It was also time to start the banquet. Chiron introduced his proud youngest son, who was also the main character of today's party. He then announced that there were two things to keep in mind during the banquet. As always, if anyone gets drunk and fights, they will be dragged to the arena, and the loser will have to surrender while the winner must be merciful. Jin now also knew the name of the Banquet of Fateful Encounters. This was a gathering place for the most influential people on the continent. They all had complex relationships, so as long as they followed the two rules his father had set, although they couldn't kill their opponents, they could still beat them to a pulp and assert their superior position. With that, Chiron invited everyone to quickly join the party. He turned to Jin and told him to do the same. If he found someone suitable, just pull them out. But he shouldn't forget not to challenge anyone weaker and, most importantly, not to lose. Obviously, if that happened, Jin would have everything taken back by his father, not just his sword, but also his nanny. And so the main character also went down to greet the guests. The Tona brothers, seeing Jin, also came over to play curiously. The three brothers exchanged a few pleasantries, and then the Tona brothers also went elsewhere. A tall man, the first candidate of the Ken clan, came to chat with Jin. Just then, a guy came from nowhere and grabbed his head. He introduced himself as Wooger and had come to see what the junior was like. Jin was also very happy to meet him, but he didn't quite like the way he greeted him, even if he was a junior. Jin turned to Wooger and said that his action just now was an insult to the people here. Even though they are both our seniors, they were very polite when greeting me, so it's best for you to admit your mistake and apologize to them. Seeing this, Wooger's face turned pale, and he quickly apologized. Luckily, Jin had spoken up first. Otherwise, they would have surely started fighting. Luna came from behind and sarcastically said, "You're also good at making enemies, aren't you? Wouldn't it be easier to just act like a normal kid?" A world ruled by power and swordsmanship, where a swordsman clan dominates half the world. They are the Runkandel lineage, a renowned swordsman clan with all its members born with superior physical strength and talent. With extraordinary courage, they have dominated the world for a long time. Combat, conquest, and subjugation. These three things describe this clan entirely. From a young age, during the clan's traditional selection ceremony, where the children's destinies would be decided, Jin chose the patriarch's sword for himself, the sword of the founder, and the symbol of Runkandel. Destined to lead this clan, Jin's father, the clan's greatest swordsman, was very pleased and looked forward to it. It was thought that Jin's life would be filled with success and fame, but then his life turned a new page. Jin had no talent for swordsmanship, and whispers about the question of why a member of the prestigious Runkandel lineage couldn't wield a sword constantly reached his ears. The shame of Runkandel, the disgrace of Runkandel, who fell far short of the clan's standards. Thus, Jin lived each day in the most pathetic way. One morning, as usual, Jin was still practicing with his sword when his two older brothers passed by. Seeing Jin swinging his useless wooden sword, they mocked him, saying he would forever be an outcast of the clan.